The following live broadcast is rated PG. Parental guidance is suggested. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and follow Ear Shoulder Voice on YouTube and Facebook, or visit our website at www.earshouldervoice.com.
We've got to work together.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Ear Shoulder Voice. My name is Keith Litfin, and I'm glad to have you here. I just want to go back a little bit, back to the 50s and 60s when you used to watch TV, especially those sitcoms that were on. The family unit was a big thing. Everybody was happy. It was always a husband, a wife, and two kids, sometimes not the kids. They slept in separate beds, but there was always a very strong family unit. One thing that could never be spoken about on those shows was, of course, the big, giant D word, divorce. Because they didn't want to tackle those issues. Slowly, as TV progressed and our countries progressed, our society, everything else progressed, it became more acceptable. A lot of times people use it to poke fun on a show. Sometimes they use it to just point out the funny things involved in it, but they never really delve how serious divorce can be. Unless you're watching Hallmark or Lifetime or some shit like that. Believe me, they'll tell you all about it. But you don't have that conversation in regular life. Today's topic is going to be breaking apart the divorce show. It's about what happens to the family unit when they separate. How do you deal with leaving a partner, someone you've been with for so long? Or if you're a part of that family, maybe you're a child, how do you deal with the changing family, splitting up between two parents? All that's going to be discussed. But don't forget, while you're here, like, share, follow, and subscribe to Ear Shoulder Voice on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and well, I think that's all of them, so we're good. And we'll be on there. Go to our website at www.earshouldervoice.com. Get notified of all our live shows, see a live schedule coming up, and even sign up to be a main panelist. Speaking of panelists, we've got our own tonight, so let's bring them in. Our first panel tonight is one of the founders of Ear Shoulder Voice. Please welcome Darlin Nikki. Darlin Nikki, how you doing?
Hi, Keith. How are you?
How else could I ever be besides...
Wonderful!
Exactly. Amazing, fantastic, wonderful, always. I'm just happy. I'm a happy person. Big people, it's my job.
Yes.
It's got to be jolly, got to be happy.
Yes.
Not always true, but at least I can try to show it as much as I can.
Yep.
So here we are, talking about one of the hard topics people have in their life. It's weird because marriage is a blessing. It's supposed to be that one thing that changes your life forever. And when people get married, they think it's never going to get any better than it is right now.
Right.
And the fact is, sometimes they're right. How do you relate to that?
I mean, I grew up in a divorced home. My parents divorced, I think I was in first grade, so I was really young. And then my dad and my stepmom divorced. It was like an evolving thing. And then eventually I was the product of a divorce, and then my children became a product of divorce.
So you've seen it from a lot of different angles.
Yeah, unfortunately. And and it's supposed to be like this, this strong bond, the sanctity of marriage is supposed to be something very amazing. But at the same time, sometimes people grow apart. They change, they evolve, and they go in different directions. And let's face it, we've made it pretty easy to not only get married, but to divorce. It's become a norm, right?
Yeah, much easier than it used to be. And it used to be a word you never spoke of. Even in the 80s, you didn't talk. You were outcast if you were divorced.
Right.
But not anymore. Now it's more common than marriage, it seems. How that's possible, I don't know, but it seems to be.
I know.
It really is. All right,
and divorce rate's high.
Yeah, I'm going to bring our next panelist, another one of our founders of Ear Shoulder Voice. He's been away for a while, but we're very glad to have him back. Please welcome Brandon.
Brandon!
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Brandon. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
I almost want to say Dr. Nick. You did that perfectly. Hi, Dr. Nick. So, Brandon, I never realized you had been divorced. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm on my 8th divorce
I
at
believe
age 25.
No, I know you haven't yet. And hopefully we're not going to steer you wrong because I know you just moved in with your girl and everything, and things are definitely advancing well there. So everything we say here isn't going to necessarily apply to you guys. So
Probably
everybody's
not.
different. But how do you relate to this?
I'm a product of many divorces. My family tree looks more like a forest because of them. It's like, yeah, my parents were together on both of their second marriages, and now they're on their third, both. And I don't know why people still get married. It's
Now,
just, it's weird.
I have to ask this because I'm curious if they're both on their third marriage, correct? So what happens to the second group? I mean, like the first marriage, I get you're going to still have attachment to your parent because one's a real parent, and probably to the mother of the new person there. But the second group are they just kind of forgotten about?
No, they're good people, so you hang out with them.
That's good on both sides.
Yeah.
So at least half of them. So that's good. I can tell that right there.
You hang out with the other side for a different reason because they party really well.
Oh, that's
You maybe don't.
that could
tell
also be the
other-
cause of the divorce, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we're going to bring on our next panelist, the lovely and always talented and always happy to have you, Millie. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good.
You're
Good
doing
seeing you
amazing,
guys.
right?
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, Millie, I know you're currently in a happy relationship right now, and everything's going fantastic, and we talk about that a lot, but we don't often delve into past relationships. So, how do you deal with divorce? How have you dealt or had to deal with divorce?
Multiple facets like Nikki. My parents divorced when I was in first grade. And both my dad and my mom remarried after. I was actually a product of my mom's second marriage. She divorced from her first husband. My dad was her second husband. They divorced after about 20 years. And she remarried and got divorced after a couple. Thank goodness.
Dang.
I didn't like my stepfather. He was horrible. My dad remarried for like 6 months after, a little while after. He married someone else, was married for 6 months, got divorced. And then he eventually met my stepmother, and they stayed married till he passed away. And they were married for quite a while, and I do adore my stepmother.
That's good.
So I've experienced a lot of it growing up. And then also my first marriage ended in divorce as well.
Well,
And I did.
that's what we're here to talk about, actually. So that's good. Perfect. So you and Nikki both have the very broad spectrum of this. You both grew up in that family.
Yeah.
Actually, everybody on here has kind of grown up in those families. I did not grow up in a divorced family. Or, I'm sorry, I did not grow up in a family that got divorced. I grew up with a family that was already divorced. So it was just my mom. I never knew my dad. So I don't have that same perspective, but I do have the idea of having it. I do deal with the remarriage, because my mom had remarried as well, and that's a long story we won't get into because we already have in a past show. So I'm going to be asking probably more of the questions here because I don't always know how to deal with all this stuff when it comes to divorce. I've never been married because I decided to stay smart. Brandon, glad you're on my side right now, but let's see how long that lasts because you're moving in the right direction.
We'll see.
So what is it you think that actually drives a family apart over time, and why does it take so long?
I genuinely think that just sometimes, and women are, and forgive me, ladies who are watching, but us ladies, we tend to mistake sex for love.
I thought you were just going to say you were batshit crazy. Okay.
Oh, I am.
Gotcha.
I am batshit crazy, but we tend to mistake sex for love, which then kind of puts us into this like mental space, like we want to live with him forever and we love him forever, and we're really young when that happens, and so as we age, we evolve, or we should evolve. And sometimes as a married couple, we don't always evolve in the same direction. It's a fork in the road sometimes, and that's where divorce comes. It could also be, adultery. There's so many things.
There's lots of reasons that can
A lot of
happen, and
reasons.
Yeah.
I understand adultery is definitely one that's not one that eventually, is a small problem leading up to it. But in a sense, adultery is too, because what drives you to the point of committing that?
True.
There are people that are just around somebody and they fall in love unexpectedly. It leads to an affair. It leads to, obviously, divorce. And
I feel like
But-
that's the biggest point,
Right.
though, is that people do just, if you're trying to be a better person, you are supposed to try and keep growing. And sometimes two people just don't grow quite the same way. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's totally fine, but then that's kind of why, I don't know, I clearly have a biased opinion, but I think marriage is a bad idea all around.
Your,
think it
your
depends.
girlfriend's not around, huh?
Oh, no, she agrees with me.
I think it depends on partly on knowing what you really want and knowing the person well enough. At least for me, with my first marriage, I think I rushed into it. I was young. I thought, oh, I'm done with college. This is the next thing you're supposed to do,
Yeah.
without really thinking about what does it mean to
Right.
be married and live with someone 24/7 like that.
Right.
You know, all those things. I didn't know him well enough. I didn't know that he had an anger problem, you know, which caused big issues. And, you
So
know,
that's
he became verbally abusive, and that's not good. And I finally
that would have
realized
probably
I needed to get
gone
out.
with our show. We had to move that controlling relationship one because I know you were going to be
Yeah.
on that one too. So that would have been very similar. Bill, I was actually waiting for you to chime in because I know you talked about it before. You've been engaged 14 times, but
That's
never
so
married.
many rings.
It's just the I know.
Right.
I know.
That's a
Actually,
lot of
one
money,
divorce,
Bill.
so- like,
Or did you just reuse it 14 times?
same.
He's the reason K Jewelers is open.
What are all these etches in the back? I'm just keeping count.
Who's Sarah?
Yeah. And but he does says he has insight to the subject because he's the cause of many relationships that end. And yeah, it's me. Now I believe it's probably you in some cases, Bill, without a question. But it's not always you. You cannot always blame one side for it just because it fits in there. But I want to get to the next part right now that I was going to ask you anyway. But people already comment. Kids get married too early in life nowadays. Stop it. Live in sin. I wouldn't go into live in sin, but well, yeah, live in sin. It's fun that way. But Allie says, especially if you marry young and are still growing up, you tend to grow in different directions.
Yes.
She was married from 19 until 40, her entire young adult life. At what ages were you and or your parents married, if you know, that got divorced?
Backward
well,
rings.
my-
That's funny.
Go ahead, Millie.
I know, well, my mom's first marriage, she got married at 20, but then they divorced because he went to jail because he basically killed her, my sibling. So that's why, and, you know,
Okay.
again,
Didn't put
abusive.
death in the tag. I should have.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Guess he was angry.
Yeah, he was very abusive, apparently. He was young and I guess maybe a little bit naive, and, you know, you got married really young then. That was back in, you know, the 50s.
What about you, Nikki? I want to ask one question to you, but I want Nikki's answer first. Well, how old were you, Nikki, when you first got married?
I was really young. I had been with him since I was 18. We didn't get married until I was 23. But I had filed for divorce before we even hit that 1 year mark. Like
wow.
I should have never, he was one I should have never married. I did it out of fear because I was going through all that stuff with my children when my children were removed, and I thought that's what I needed to do to show that I was a stable person, and it had
Okay.
the opposite effect.
So your children, a little confused here. Children by which?
My
parents?
oldest two. My oldest
Your
two.
oldest two. So you've been
are
divorced
product-
twice, you said, right?
No, just once.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you already had kids, and then you were getting married.
No. I had children with him before we got married. And then the
That's
whole...
what I meant. Okay. Yeah, you
Yeah.
already had kids, and then you
With
got married.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
had already had the kids. Okay, that's what I was missing on that. The
Yeah.
question I had for both of you is: did you feel because you were at such a young age, was there any kind of rebellious reason? Was there anything that pushed you to do it more? Nikki, you kind of answered that, but was there anything I just got to get
I
my
didn't
life
get
started?
to my point. I was 24. Sorry, I didn't mention that about when I got married. I got married at 24, but I had finished college, and I just thought that was the next thing. He had proposed. I thought, okay, that's the next step in life, without thinking
Natural
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't that I was pushed, but I felt like, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do next, without really thinking about what does it mean to be married.
Well, I don't always
you
mean
know,
like were you
and-
pushed by family or parents or anything, or just pushed to get out of the house. But are you pushed because of age? Like when you're in your 20s, you think now's the time I've got to start this. I've got to get married. You hear so many
I
people
think I
say,
kind of felt
want
that a bit.
yeah, I want to be married by this age, or I want to be, going. And when it gets closer, they get like nervous. They want this to happen. Mm-hmm. And is that sometimes you think the cause of the divorce? I mean, not getting to know somebody well enough. How long did you live
Yeah.
with them prehand?
I didn't. We were only
That would
together
be a
a year and
problem.
we got married. Now
you
my
never
second
know.
now my second husband, we were together for about 2 years, a little over 2 years, and we lived together for about almost 2 years. So before we got married, I knew what I was getting
says he's
into.
got the bag of rings there. I think on Amazon you can actually buy a bag of rings now. You can get anything. A Wish especially, you get them really
It's like,
cheap.
I got 14 chances.
Yeah.
Allie says her parents were married for 60 plus years until my dad passed. Congratulations to
Wow,
them.
good
And
for
I know
them.
you recently lost your mom as well. So, Allie, you obviously have the shining example of how a marriage can work if they were married for 60 whole years. And I know your mom was always awesome. I knew your mom personally. And she'll definitely be missed as well. But yeah, marriages can work out great. They really can. But you got to try to find the steps where you went wrong. So I'm going to get to Brandon in a minute because we're actually dealing with the direct divorces right now that you've gone through. No, now I forgot what I was going to say. I just got one of those moments really quick. So it was just gone, exactly. What did you learn on your next marriage? What did you take into it that you tried not to do again?
I think I'm sorry. Go ahead, Millie. Go ahead.
Okay. For me, I wanted to make sure I really knew what I was getting into. So I wanted to make sure I had enough time. Because I think with my first marriage, I didn't get enough time to really get to know him and what he was really like. This time I did. This time we lived together first because I wanted to make sure. And that was a big thing for me.
Very important thing. Yeah.
And I want to make sure, our values lined up. We had similar, even though we don't have all the same interests, we had similar beliefs about certain things about life, and all of that.
How much time had passed between meeting him, getting engaged to him, and then marrying him ultimately on your second one?
Just a little over 2 years. So 2 years and like 3 months.
Okay, so that's a good amount of time, though.
5 months. I'm sorry, 5 months.
And half of that was spent living with him, and half of it was just when you met him. So,
well, more than half. We moved in pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, moving in quickly, it's the marriage you got to not jump into sometimes. 'Cause that's where you can get trapped, especially when it comes to kids, right, Nikki?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what did you learn, being that you already had kids with somebody, then married them? First, a question before you continue on that. Were the kids the reason for the marriage, ultimately?
For me, ultimately, the reason I married him was because I thought that's what the court system wanted to see. At that point in our relationship, it was already dead in the water. It was already broken. I was just kind of I was like a cat trying to claw myself out of the swimming pool at that point. Just really grasping for anything to get my children back. That was all my focus was. And when I met my second long-term relationship, we did not get married, partially because I learned a lot of hard lessons that first go around. And so I learned, I needed to get to know this person. I didn't need to rush into something, as serious as marriage, because I learned the hard way. And two, he wasn't really the marrying type. And then we had children. We had 3 kids. That's where my youngest 3 come from.
Okay.
And we were together 8 years. It was about year 7 that he did propose. But again, the relationship was broken at that point. So that was his cat scratching moment to kind of try to salvage what he thought was left. We didn't get married. We ended up... to be honest with you, I would have been better off if I would have been married to him because I would have had certain rights that I lost not being married.
Was it a harder fight afterwards?
Yeah.
Like to keep the kids or anything on that?
Yeah, it was a 12-year court battle. Legit a 12-year battle in the court system because we were not married.
And obviously his name was on that birth certificate.
Yep.
That's how it all works.
Yep.
And that gives him, and not being married, there is no split up rights at that time.
Right,
Especially
exactly.
Back then. I mean,
Exactly.
It's not that long ago, but things have changed a lot in the last 20 years. Even. Bill says his daughter has been with her boyfriend since school 5 years, and they fight a lot. He told me he was going to ask her to marry him. I had to, he should have put in quotes, explain to him that he wasn't, because he doesn't work. Has everybody in a relationship been with somebody who just didn't work?
My first husband.
Your first husband. Now,
Yeah.
was that for most of the time you guys were together?
Yes. He was like a I don't know. I don't know what his parents did a lot for him. They never said no to him. They funded his they were enablers. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
They enabled him to not work.
Was he
So-
was he a spoiled rich kid or just a spoiled kid?
No, he wasn't a spoiled rich kid by any means. His dad was a hard worker at Ford's, an electrician. But he had money, but he was the youngest of all the children. He a lot of demons in that family's closets kind of were the reasoning, I think, in a sense of why they continually funded his escapades to try to make up for what they didn't protect him from in the years past, if you get my draft. And I mean, eventually it came to a point where his mom put her foot down and said, enough is enough. It's time for you to grow up and be a man. You got children. He did for about 6 months work. And then he went right back to old habits. He went back to drugs. He went back to the person, that really consumed him. And history has now, written itself. He passed
sometimes
away.
people just decide they don't like work.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. You said he passed away?
Yeah. 2008, he passed away from
Okay, that
a
was-
drug overdose.
Oh, okay. And that was after you were divorced from him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was going to say...
Didn't get married though, right? You guys didn't get married though, right?
Him and I, he was my first husband. We were married
okay.
for under a year.
Okay.
We had children together, but at that point when
was
he
the first.
passed away, he actually passed away a month after Greg and I got married. And him and I had learned to have a friendship. I know he voiced to me several times he wanted more than a friendship, but he had already tarnished, the love that I had for him, years ago, so it was never going to happen. But
Now, I wanted to get to Brandon, but I'm not going to yet still, because I have another question for
Not
you
yet,
on Nikki.
not yet.
Not yet. I kept getting a trailing off. You bring something else. Now, you mentioned the drug problem. Was there a drug problem at all during the relationship?
Oh, yeah. And I was so young and stupid and naive. I had so many people telling me to watch out, and my blinders were on. I was like, oh, he loves me. I was so young. I was 18. I was so stupid. So I didn't see it for a long time. I did not see it nor realize it until I was about 8 months pregnant with my daughter. And I came home from work because I was the one that worked and paid the bills, all the way to the end of my pregnancy. And I had just had my baby shower, and everything that I had gotten from my baby shower, I mean, you guys right down to the crib, him and his crack buddy figured out a way to return these things. And it was at that moment where I was like, oh my God, they were right this whole time.
Well, it's really easy for people to look outside in, but it's really hard for people on the inside to look out.
Yeah,
and
for
see it.
sure.
You can't. That's always been the case. It's like a fish in an aquarium. They're big, beautiful
Yeah.
world in there, but you can see what's actually going on from the outside.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
won't understand it. Now I'm going to move to Brandon for a second because I want to get to the kids aspect. Brandon, how old were you when your parents first got divorced?
You could say I was the catalyst, because they were just constantly fighting. They didn't like each other. It was just bad, and they were telling me there was a point where I was playing in the family room with my little train game play set, and they started just fighting again, and I just stood up and started like going off like an alarm clock, like and they were just like, yeah, we should probably call this off. And so I was probably around 6.
Around 6. Did you
Maybe
understand
5.
what was going on at that time? If you remember what you remember of it?
Yeah, no, just that, Dad was getting a house.
No.
It was like
For
I didn't
me-
understand what a divorce was, but
Yeah,
What about-
for
go
me,
ahead.
and this was my issue, my parents never explained to me why they were getting the divorce, like nothing, and I thought it was my fault for years.
Oh.
Like I
That
thought I
definitely
was the
one we were gonna
reason.
hit. Apparently Brandon
And-
still does.
That yeah.
Yeah, but the that feeling of is it my fault was like if it was I nailed it. It was a good call.
Your mama
only
said you were
three.
3. Yeah, you were 3.
Yeah, you
Damn.
were 3, Brandon.
Those are
How
dope
old were
train
you
set.
again, Millie?
I was about 6.
And how old were you, Nikki?
Yeah, I was about 6. But the crazy thing with my parents is if it was happening, I don't recall seeing it coming. I mean, granted, I was young, but as far as we were concerned, our parents loved each other. I don't recall really big fights or anything. My mom really low blowed him and waited till he was on a fishing tournament.
I saw my dad
And-
kiss another woman and told my mom about it. So that's why I thought it was all my fault.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
because you told your mom. Well,
And
it
then-
is your fault. But
and then-
he is the
Whistleblowers
cause.
are never to
After,
blame.
but they were already separated. I didn't understand any of that. And they were already going to be getting the divorce. But I thought because I told my mom and then soon after the divorce happened that, it was because I did that.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
didn't
don't
find
know.
out till later.
you know what? I told my stepmom when I caught my dad cheating on her. I told her. I felt obligated, and I was like 17. So at that point, I know right from wrong. I know he's wrong, and I was just as committed to her as I was to him. She basically raised us from, say, 8 years old onto that age. So I felt, obligated. But that wasn't the nail in the casket for them. It wasn't me telling her that caused
Yeah.
the divorce. So
Yeah.
I really wish I'd have been able to get my brother on the show, actually, because he dealt with it. He was 6 years old, or a little older than that when they got divorced. I don't remember it, because my dad was very abusive, apparently, to my brother, from what I understand as well. And that was never there. So I always questioned, and I thought it was my fault because I was born and he left, pretty much. And I know that's
Aw.
a weird way to put it, but it was as I grew up. Like, that's why my dad doesn't want to talk to me but spends all the time with my brother. I didn't get how long he knew my brother. I was young.
yeah.
So, and I never understood until I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I went to Red Oaks Water Park. I went to rent the raft, took my last name. Person behind me or in front of us had the exact same last name.
Stop
turned out-
it.
Yeah. So, oh, God, Bill. I was like, you're on top of that, aren't you? So, we put the same last name. I found out, turns out because we had the same father. And it turns out he was older than me.
Whoa.
So I was like 10 or 11 years
Plot
old,
twist.
and literally my whole life changed in that moment. Like, everything I thought, everything I believed, my full respect went to my mom more than you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
And I had no desire to actually see my father ever again. When I realized that was, my brother was with us too. I don't think it even clicked with my brother as much as it clicked with me. Like,
Wow.
he's older than me, so that means
He came before me.
yes. I'll ask how many arranged marriages end in divorce. I really don't know. Honestly, I don't think don't know how much of a legitimate question that is, but I don't think a lot of them can end in divorce. I think
Well, a lot of
cultures.
arranged, a lot of
there's stuff
arranged
going on.
marriages are in a culture where they strongly forbid divorce. Like,
Yeah,
divorce
'cause
is
most arranged
not a solution.
marriages, it's not about what they want; it's what the parents
Yeah.
want.
I think in
External
those,
forces.
I think in those types of relationships, when if it gets to a point where one hates the other, that's where the husband is got multiple girlfriends and the wife just gets his money and does her thing. You learn to adapt and,
Yeah, or they live separately, but they don't divorce, things like that.
yeah. Or
Now,
they'll live together and just live their own life. They, they do their own things.
It's like a roommate.
Yeah.
Now, it seems, especially back then, obviously it's a woman's state. It still kind of is. It's not as bad as it once was, but it's still a woman's state for sure. And one that definitely benefits the mother typically. Does everybody here end up living with the mother? I know you had a huge fight, though, Nikki.
Yeah, no. When me and, which, again, we were
No,
not
I'm talking
married.
about when your parents got divorced. I'm saying I know
Oh.
with you had a huge fight because things have changed. But as far
Yeah.
as when your parents got divorced, did everybody here end up living with their mother?
We did briefly.
I did.
Only briefly because my mom hid us from our dad for like a good solid year. My mom left my dad when he was gone on a fishing tournament, and we didn't see him for like a year. We were like programmed like he was this horrible, person. So when we did finally see him, I legit remember running back home from the school bus stop screaming because he showed up to see his children, and I was terrified of him. But it wasn't too long after that my mom was like, here, take these kids. I can't take care of them. Either take them or I'm putting them in foster care.
Shotgun weddings, Bill. Absolutely right there. They used to do it down south.
Yeah.
Divorce ended with gunshots. So, yeah, they used to arrange marriage all the time. Down south, I know it was big that you had to be an upstanding, member of one of the big families of down south.
Yeah.
How far back that goes, you couldn't marry anybody else. That used to be the case everywhere. But South obviously keeps their traditions longer than the North does. That's the Civil War. That's kind of what brought that. So, what was the deal? You said your mom pretty much bashed your dad beyond belief, Nikki. How about the other two?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, my parents, they were really good about trying not to bash each other too much in front of me. It just flipped occasionally when they would disagree with something the other had done, but for the most part, they really tried not to do that. So I would say that was pretty good.
That's good.
My dad honestly wasn't involved very much for quite a while until I got a little bit older, probably around 6th grade. Then he started getting involved with me and developing a relationship. Because for a few years,
Now, did
he
you
was,
ever
like,
have a desire
pretty much not
to
there.
move in with your dad? I don't know your relationship with your
I
mom.
did
but-
when I was older, and I actually lived. I actually ended up moving out when I was 17 and moving in with my dad. But I just graduated high school, and it was before I went to college.
Well, that's kind of adult
So-
time. My brother did that for a brief time.
Yeah,
too.
but I mean, it had nothing to do with my mother. It just
Okay.
was something else that happened with someone else living at the house. I didn't feel safe.
And what
No,
about
I
you,
didn't get
Brandon?
that.
Obviously, your mom you're very close with your mom. I know that. Obviously, she shares all your personal information with us. Thank you, Debbie. So we appreciate that very much. But did you ever, I mean, obviously everybody gets in arguments with their parents and family. Did you ever use your dad against your mom or leave with them?
No, they would, I lived with my mom first, and she would talk a little more trash about my dad, and that almost like put my blinders up a little bit, and my dad would never talk about it, and as I grew older, I was like, oh, it's because it was you. But then around 3rd grade, I was in school at, it was Land's Cruise, and, with the heroin,
I'm waiting for your mom to tell us
needles
it
and
was like
knives
4th
and
grade.
it was, and then my dad was in Macomb, where it was way better schools and safer. So they were both like, "Yeah, right, you should probably go there so you don't get stabbed at school." And so I lived with my dad from 3rd grade on, and just a better environment.
If I can ask, and people are going to share, what was the cause of the parents' divorce? Ultimately, do you know? Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
Just
Well,
fighting.
besides, I know,
Yeah, it was
Brandon, you
the
think it
fighting
was
constantly.
you, but yours was just they grew apart literally by fighting and stuff.
Yeah, no, it wasn't me. I was just the one to go like, "What are you doing?"
The women
At
on this
3.
panel, when I was bringing this up before, both mentioned cheating and
Yeah, it was
So
adultery
I'm
for
curious.
with my
Yeah.
parents. Divorce.
Okay.
It was adultery.
Now on your dad's. I'm assuming your dad did it.
Yeah.
Okay, because what about you, Nikki?
Yeah, to be honest, to this day, and I'll probably never know. I don't know why my mom opted to leave my dad. I do know because we actually had it coming
were
from
right.
both sides. We had my mom bashing my dad, and then my dad telling us stuff about our mom that children probably never want to know. I think it was probably a multitude of things. If the information that I've been told over the years, my mom was not faithful in the marriage. She got pregnant several times by men outside of the marriage and had, and terminated the pregnancies. I'm sure it was a compilation of things. Also, my mom was 15 when she got pregnant with my sister, 16 when she had her. My parents got married. Actually, my grandparents had to sign something giving my dad custody of my mom and my sister because my mom was still a minor. So, it goes to, they were young. They were really young.
I'm gonna actually ask Debbie this question if you can. Debbie, were there any warning signs that you saw coming through, and how long did you see them? But I'm also going to bring up your comment, and Bill, I'm going to use you for a jumping off point in a minute because I wanted to hit that topic. But Debbie says his dad blamed me for everything bad in the world. How did you take that, Brandon?
Yeah, I didn't see that directly because I was
Your dad didn't
4.
like talk to you
Yeah.
and blame
I don't
her.
Well, I didn't really know what they were
He was a
I'm
fighting
saying
baby.
about.
as you grew up. I'm obviously right then. No, I hope your dad doesn't go to a 4-year-old and try to explain the ins and outs of marriage.
Yeah, you see what she does is she yells at me when I fill the dishwasher, and now, it wasn't until I was like quite a bit older. We're talking like high school years that, I kind of. They really didn't talk about it that much, like the specifics of how it started to go towards divorce. But I know even pretty late in my high school time, he, it kind of came through from my stepmom that there was like some accusations from him of my mom, having an affair.
Oh.
But then, like a couple years, like within a year, he had accused my stepmom also of an affair, and my stepmom's a freaking sweetheart, and that like immediately killed that idea about my mom too. I was just like, I think you just throw that out there. So
Do you feel you're immune a little bit there, Brandon? Now, I mean, after 3
immune to
later
what?
divorce, like if your mom got married and
Well, I just like it just really cemented in my whole idea of marriage is like, why? Like, give me one reason why. Like, besides, like, if you're like really deep into Christianity, I get it. But like, to me, it's just like two people love each other. You spend the time to live together. You understand that, as much as you can, because we don't know how we're going to grow apart. We love each other and are on the same page. Let's like, whoever goes, I love you so much. Let's get the government involved. Like, I don't understand that. Like, it's just
you
the
do that with
dumbest
the marriage
thing ever.
itself to start with, and then of course in divorce. But it's also a religious thing. If you're religious, marriage doesn't have to actually involve
There's a religious
government.
component. Financially, it can be more beneficial
Yeah.
to be married.
So
it is.
I know you're young, and I know a lot of people your age that say, no, I'm never getting married and stuff. So I hope I am invited to the wedding when it happens.
I'm pretty sure it's
probably-
I
going to be
enjoy
a
being married.
wedding.
You got to be with the right person. I really think that's the thing.
Yeah. Oh, a million
I
percent.
think,
Yeah.
like,
you never
'cause this
know, because
time I
we
got married
all
in my
change in
30s,
life.
and it was different.
Yeah.
I just
Yes.
Once you hit 30, once you hit 30 to 35, you've kind of cemented who you are going to be for most of your life. When you hit, but you change from 15 to 18, 18 to 21, 21 to 25, and 25 to 30. Those are all stages that you change a lot of what you want out of life. Your likes, your dislikes, everything changed consistently.
Even into your 40s, honest to
Yeah,
God.
it still continues, but it slows down. Like
Yeah,
you go through a
true.
drastic change during those periods.
True,
Because
true.
different freedoms open up. When different freedoms open up, we can have different people. Debbie said he started being a jerk on their honeymoon, and it took 6 years. Why 6 years? I mean, this is where I get confused with things. I really wish I could have you on the panel here, Debbie, because you've got a story I'd love to hear about.
Here's the thing, though, because I can kind of relate to Debbie because despite the fact that me and my second relationship, we were not married, I saw the red flags right away, but I stuck it out because, for one, I believed in the sanctity of, like, just a relationship. Granted, we weren't married, but I still believed, like, with a relationship or marriage comes trial and tribulations, and you have to kind of push through them to survive them. And I constantly remembered what, as a child, I went through with my parents divorcing, and I didn't want to do that to my children. So I hung on for dear life in hopes that he would change. And I learned that you cannot change somebody who does not want to change.
That's
Still
absolutely
just get
true.
really mad at the whole marriage
Same.
aspect. Like, why can't you just be with someone in love and just have like a party? Like, we'll probably just throw a banger at a mess hall and call it a wedding and not
Because
sign the
I'll-
contracts and then.
Because you can love your best friends. You
Yeah.
can party with your best friends. You can do a lot of things with your best friends. There is something about the unity of being together, whether you call it marriage or anything else. It's still, it means you're sharing one life. You're not
Yeah.
just
Can't
having
you just
fun
do that
together.
without signing a contract with the United
Yeah,
States
but then
government?
can't you just go fuck someone else?
No, that's
I mean,
Why not?
you
I
sign
mean,
the
there's certain
contract or
things
not,
that marriage do, but there's certain things. Yeah, but that ends in divorce, and
Yeah,
in
but
some
that's
ways it's
having-
protection.
to
Like,
me.
what
It's
we're
having
dealing-
more belief in the person you're with than belief in whatever reason you have
But
to
if you
believe in
enter
marriage.
into marriage, you usually already have that belief going on. You already believe that's going to be
Yep.
perfect.
That's awesome, but
But it
you
is a
know that
protection
people are
thing.
going to grow apart and change. Then why even leave it on the table? Like, it's
Well,
not
that's
a
quite
trust
the
issue.
cynical.
It's just
I think that's a
stupid.
cynical outlook to it. I really do.
too.
I'm not.
It's yeah, but I mean, coming from someone who is a product of divorce, that's just something that's they haven't had that example of what can come from like a good foundation.
Yeah,
So
I think
that's
I
the product.
understand that.
It might be because I never saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I
I've
get
seen the
that,
bad
but I
things
just
divorce,
don't
but I've
see
also
it.
seen great marriages as well. Like my dad remarried my stepmother, and they had a lasting marriage, and it was a very good marriage. He did change a lot when he
And
was away from my
Allie's
mom and
parents
he married
stayed
her.
married for 60 years, as Allison said. For more than 60 years, they stayed married. There's something about that day. It's something to describe the day your life changes. Now, granted, Brandon, you're also the guy, and most guys are like, I don't really care about the wedding, the marriage.
Yeah, but doesn't
anything
she
like
feel
that.
the same as you,
She
Brandon?
does
That
But
feel
she
same,
does,
yeah.
which is different. But I mean,
Are
that
her
will
parents
also
divorced?
probably change.
No, they're happily married for a long time, but she
Okay.
still sees it as like a weird thing to get like the contract signed. Like that's
like
just
a
so
ritual
weird. Just trust.
almost.
I mean, you're
Trust
kind of.
in each
There are
other.
people that do that. It is, as Bill says right here, it's common law marriage in some states. Once you live together so long, 7
Yeah.
years typically, it's
Mission
common law that you're married.
We are not one of them, by the way.
We are not a common law. We used to be.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not a
And
common law state anymore.
And there is, like I mentioned before, there are financial aspects to it that it does benefit you to get married. There are.
That I would look at.
Yeah.
So that if you're already decided you want to be committed to each other, live together and all of that, then it's almost like, well, you might as well get the financial benefits of it too.
Yeah, if we can get money,
But
we'll
some
do it
people-
today. I don't give a.
Well, not.
Well, there you go.
You get some tax breaks,
It's
buddy.
just like
Yeah,
if
there's
we're
tax
doing
breaks,
it, it's
and
for the money.
there's other benefits as well too.
Yeah. At the same, I don't think it's right to necessarily close off the idea of marriage and say, well, I can just live like you're my best friend living with me. But I do get where you're coming from when you see it so much. I'm kind of against marriage in general because I've seen it so much. I've married a lot of the couples. I'm also an officiant, and they've been friends, and I've done a lot of their weddings. And, of course, in the bar atmosphere, you see everything. You see where they go up and where they go down. And so I find marriage in a lot of ways to kind of be a joke. But I still understand when I look at the faces of the people on the wedding day when I'm there, when I'm actually marrying them, or they're doing their first dance and stuff, you can see how big that day is to both parties, and that it marks a momentous occasion that their life is changing forever.
See, all I'm offering is that you have that day, you have the rings, you have everything involved except for the signing of the contract. That's just too weird.
Well, I said you can get married without the law even being involved, technically, because
Right,
it's a
yeah,
religious...
no,
Yeah.
okay,
you
now
know.
we're on the same page. I was more
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about the government aspect.
Yeah.
Well, it can be for protection as well that they get married to, if
Yeah.
you're not sure. Especially if
'cause-
you're poor marrying into rich, etc.
True. Plus, just an FYI, once you hit 18, if you do not have a spouse to be your voice, if something, heaven forbid, something horrible happens.
It's not the
Even
1970s, man. Well, I mean, 1700s, really. When's the last time someone was like, they're a bastard because they were...
They said
Well-
that in the 1900s quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's
But
'cause they were idiots.
even your own parent has no say over what happens to you medically. If you are an adult and you have no one as your proxy, there is no one to say keep him alive.
That's
There's
a
no
great
one
point of
to
view,
say,
actually, right there.
there's no one to say, so
I guess
not
if I
You
see
are-
where
You
kids
are
would
sharing
change it
in your
for
life.
me. Kids would
but
change a little
anyway,
bit.
we're not about the marriage as much as the show is about it breaking up, which stands to your point more.
I'm just saying
'cause
we
this
could
is
avoid
the
this whole
divorce.
show.
We could. As Bill said, prenup. Now I'm going to use Bill a little bit.
Yeah, but that's part of a contract. That's why it's so freaking weird.
prenups to me are so strange because if you feel before you even start that marriage, you need to lay out the groundwork for what happens when you divorce. You already done sabotage.
Yes, but in somebody in Brandon's case, for example, that's the ideal thing because he's already openly saying, I love you with all my heart, but we know people can go their own ways. Things can change through nobody's fault. So,
Plus, what's she
it's a
gonna
good
get?
reason
Half
to
of
do
my
it.
off-brand Oreos? Like,
You want my Hydrox?
Take my holy underwear. It's okay.
right? Yeah.
But your grandparents were married for 36 years until your dad died, and you were 8 months pregnant with Brandon when your grandfather died. So there's a lot of good things that come from marriage, but unfortunately, this is about the divorce thing. I'm going to do it a little bit. Everybody on here, almost the man was the asshole. On almost every occasion.
don't know. I think my mom was kind of the asshole.
You think your mom was?
I
I'm
think
gonna
they
go
were
over
both
to-
assholes, maybe. You know, there's
Does-
three sides to every story: his, hers, and the truth. So I think they were both, you know, and I think they were both responsible.
That's a good thing to know and good thing to see because a lot of people don't. Especially when you grow up in that household, you often get one main side and it's the side you're living with, and you're told not to believe the other side on a lot of things. Bill says his daughter
like
and her mother
politics.
lived with him. Well, yeah, it's politics of marriage. The bitch complained that she couldn't go to the gym because she had a child. I bought her a major home gym. Then she complained I was trying to keep her from going out, and she was the one cheating. That's because the woman is often responsible too. Now, from a woman's perspective, even though you are not guilty of this, do the women often feel they can get away with more, especially because it was a woman's state and it's still kind of a mother's state?
Oh, I don't know about that. Because
I'm going based off not your personal opinions because you don't think that way, but maybe women you know or anything like that. Do you think that's ever the case?
No.
I mean, it's
I don't have
gonna
kids.
sometimes
I
be
don't know
the
anything
case.
in terms of that goes, how things are. And I'm not
No,
from
I'm just
Michigan,
saying.
I don't know what Michigan's like.
I'm just saying, because the woman was the cheater in this sense, and it's kind of the thing. If the woman, a woman typically used to be able to, and still can, a lot of times get more in a divorce than a man can in
Sure.
Michigan. Some states less. It depends on where you are.
It depends on I think the grounds of divorce, and these days is different than decades ago. Like for instance,
True.
and my husband this is also his second marriage. In his first marriage, his wife cheated on him. She didn't get anything really because she was the one that committed adultery, and there was proof of it. And
Does either woman or guy or Debbie in the chat think that they pushed their spouse in any way, even in the minor way, or did things to get under their skin that led to the worst of worst?
So even with not like without having marriage, I've had long-term 6+ year relationships where like I saw pretty much everything. Hell, it was longer than some people are married, and I saw how things went and like what I did and regret and what she did and like how I wanted to change after. Like I went through all the stuff without the legal aspect of it.
Now, the reason I was asking the other ones on here too is kind of what you said too, is that a lot of times if you're going to get into another marriage, you have to realize what part you still had to play in that divorce, even though they did the ultimate wrong. And that's what I was asking. Is there anything that you think you did that you tried not to do in the future because maybe it was pushing somebody? You might not have. You might have been the perfect homemaker, or whatever you want to be. But do you think there was anything from anybody in the chat or on the panel?
I mean, I think I've come to terms and accepted my responsibility, good, bad, or indifferent. And the things that I learned in the first relationship, I carried over into the second, and now into my second marriage. But I will never take full responsibility.
No, absolutely not, obviously. But it would be something you carry over. And I don't always believe you're going to have a good relationship if you don't see that there were certain things. Even the things you could have done wrong would have been, like kind of in Debbie's case, I would say, ignoring the signs. Debbie literally said it happened on her honeymoon.
Yeah.
And 6 years later, it took to get the divorce.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you learn from that, and you learn to see signs. Now, is any of your...
I learned to pick a better partner.
There you go. There you go.
Well, but and with that, that I can't learning
You're like
to
a saint,
find
Millie, so.
someone that shares common values, and that will work on dealing with their issues. Because my ex-husband would not. Whereas, I think that's important. Both my current husband and I, we try to work on whatever issues we're having, and we talk with each other, and we have communication, and that wasn't there in my first marriage.
Right.
Debbie says the only change she made was not tolerating being treated as a doormat. Now, the question goes, going for the question to the panel, and of course for Debbie. I'm enjoying this conversation with you as well. Was there anything that your next marriage that kind of made you flash back to those moments that you kind of had to take in and understand? And is the right step for some people to jump out of that before it goes too far? Obviously you didn't, because you continued the marriage. But it's the right step to jump back, or figure out if you can get through this. Figure out if this is just you overreacting.
in a way, I kind of want to say both in a way, because when, as I progressed through life and I got to the place I was at to marry Greg, I definitely was at a place to lay it out. Like I laid everything out and said, this is my beliefs and this is what I'm okay with or not okay with. This is my deal breakers. This is my, work through kind of place. Now, whether it was things I said to him, some I did, some it was just kind of an internal, like an internal scorekeeper, if you will, to remind myself. But then there was some things that, in those early relationships that I didn't learn the lesson the first time, and I got burned again. And it was like, I had to keep repeating the same stupid thing to finally learn that stupid lesson of what not to do the third time or whatever.
Debbie's response was she's been with her second husband for nearly 17 years, and she's really, really happy now, and I'm very happy for you, Debbie, as well. Sometimes you don't see those signs, and the opposite effect can happen because you start to say, this is what I was missing when I thought this was everything there was. Mm-hmm. And that goes for everything in life. When you're down on your luck, or things are at their worst, or things are at their best, or you think you're never going to find something better or something greater, you always think in that moment, this is the best time and nothing can beat it. It takes something better for you to see that. But know that something better, no matter what, is out there. Even if you're happily married, you have to accept that if you get divorced for whatever reason, there is going to be something else out there for you. And it'll make you realize maybe why something didn't work in the first place. What about you with your second husband? Was there anything that gave you the flashback or moments? Millie?
Are you talking to me? Okay. Not really. I don't think I'm not sure I get what you're asking totally.
Let's say, I'll give a really strict one. This is mostly from dating. Alcoholics, I'll say, is an issue. And, I've been engaged to somebody who was an alcoholic before, never got married. And, when I date somebody else, sometimes just in the middle of needing a drink out of nowhere gives me a flashback of, like, I don't want to get in this situation again.
Okay, I got
Now,
you.
I may be able to overlook it. I may be able to step back. Or should I just say, not doing this again? Even dating before you met your next husband. Was there ever a situation like that for you, Millie?
I didn't date a lot before.
Okay. No, that's good. If you got into a happy relationship that was 100% better, that's what I love to hear.
Yeah, nothing that was, there's not been anything that's been like what I went through with my first one. So
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
I remember a time early on in mine and Greg's relationship, when I found out that he had a serious drug problem. And I, again, like my first marriage, I was blinded by one thing and unable to see, but eventually those blinders came off and reality smacked me in my face. And instead of, like I did the first time, just sitting back, tolerating it out of fear or insecurity, I legit laid it all online and I said to him, I will not live this way. This is not okay. And either you do what's right and you get yourself together and get yourself clean, or I am out of here. And it was enough to scare the living shit out of him. And I'm happy to say he is 12 years clean, 11 years clean.
That's
because
awesome.
because of that conversation.
And that's what people often miss, is that there is something better out there. If you learn, you accept, and you try to figure out what is different and what is worth it, you're going to have a happy life. And then if you ever do separate, because even the happiest couples can separate because they just, for no reason, they fall out of love. For absolutely no reason.
We were separated. Me and Greg were separated for about 6 months because we just got to a place where we were not on the same page. And what he was okay with, I was not okay with. I wanted to go in one direction and he was just kind of stagnantly sitting. And I said, okay, then it's time for me to walk away. And I did. And sometimes you have to see, what you lost before you can appreciate it, right? and that's
very
what
true.
happened. That's what happened, and he very much actively worked very, very hard to prove to me that he was ready to not be stagnant anymore.
A lot of marriage counselors, and sometimes even though I won't, necessarily go with what they say because they're full of shit half the time, but they'll suggest time apart for that reason. Sometimes you need to miss something to realize how important it is. Our closest thing Debbie ever had to flashbacks were similar things that she expected number 2 to act like number 1, and he
Yes.
didn't. And that's where the
You mean
Yeah, I
surprise.
guess I
funny
kind of
and
had more like
interesting in
that.
any way?
I had more like that, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you expected it, but it didn't happen, and that's where they come to prove you wrong, prove
Yeah.
your thoughts wrong without even having to try. Did you ever, during those moments though, did you ever penalize them like for it? Did it just bring up a little bit of anger, like you're doing that, and then that step back?
No,
did.
like for me, I'm thinking about like, for instance, when I have medical issues pop up. Because with my ex-husband, he was never supportive of anything. Like when I got sick or whatever, he would put me down for it or blame me for it or things like that. And when things like that have happened this time in this marriage, I didn't run into. At first, when I was with him, expecting him to act like my first husband, he didn't. He was instead and continues to be supportive and always trying to help me with whatever's going on.
And he helped you to realize all the mistakes from the first relationship, really,
Yeah.
and everything you did, and that it wasn't such a great thing, even though it might feel like that at the time. Go ahead, Nikki, and then I want to get down to the next part.
I was just gonna say there was one point early on in our relationship where, from the previous physically, verbally abusive relationships, that trauma, where, like I would just be in a moment where in the bad relationships, if I would speak against, their beliefs, like I very vividly remember getting punched, like square on, break my nose, bust my freaking lip open because I disagreed with what he said. And I remember a time early on in our relationship between Greg and I where I literally like flinched and like tucked in when I first, because I was just starting to learn my voice and feel comfortable in, expressing myself, but that trauma existed, in the back of my head. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget like thinking he was about to beat the shit out of me just because that trauma
What
was
had
there.
happened in the past.
Yep.
And you did. Bill says the song says you can't always get what you want. I actually love that song.
I
To me,
love
it's a
that
very
song.
inspirational song. Yeah, I didn't ask you to sing it, Brandon. Come on, I'm not doing karaoke.
But if you
right
try
now.
sometimes.
Oh, if Lenny was here, she'd be like, "Sing it, sing the song. Do you know all the words? Sing it." I miss Lenny. She'll be back in time. And Debbie, as I said, she thanked number 2 for not acting like number 1. It's the best you can do
I
out there
think
sometimes.
those are supposed
Yep.
to be 3 and 2, or I have part of her life story very
Don't you
wrong.
correct your mother on our show. You show some respect.
She didn't know what age I was when we.
Hey, you have no idea what you children do to our brains. It turns to mush in some places.
It's fair. Math is hard,
Oh,
and
poor
I
Brandon's
didn't
now
even
gotten
know my
referred to
age.
on the show as "you children."
You
I
children.
was like,
I
poor
mean,
Brandon.
technically, I think I'm old enough to be your mother.
Okay, so we're gonna move on here.
Oh, I'm sure I am.
Now I want to get to the
Plowing
next
ahead.
portion. Bill actually said this a while back, and I really wanted to get to it. And when you have good friends that get divorced, it's hard to keep talking to both
True.
of them. And I wanted to hit the concept of friends getting divorced and how it has affected you. He also says, if I get back to it, he's lost a lot of friends from divorces as well. Now, I want to hit both those topics up, and we're going to ease into it. So first, we're going to hit losing the friends from divorces. Did you lose any friends from a divorce? Even you... well, no, Brandon, I guess you wouldn't. Well, yeah, through any divorce, Brandon, did you get any friends that you lost because of the split?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, there was kids in all the marriages, so that made it weird. Like all the half brothers and half sisters and quarter sisters, and yeah.
Did you ever have to move because of your divorce, or was it always the father who moved?
Yeah, no, my mom's still in the same house she had when I was maybe at least old enough to know where I was.
Yeah, Millie?
I had to move.
You had to move, so you lost a lot of friends when your parents got divorced, I'm assuming.
Well, yeah, I lost a couple. And then
I thought you
again,
were
my
married
mom
again.
remarried. I moved, and then when divorced, we moved back. So yeah, through that, I did lose, friends. and all of that.
You did now. Did you get to call them or talk to them at all, or how did you get by? Do you communicate with any of them anymore?
No, I was real young,
Oh,
the
okay.
early ones, and yeah, pretty much all of those. Like I don't even remember their names, most of them. I think
All right,
I ran into as an adult one from when I was real young, but
we're gonna jump off to or go over to Nikki on that question with the friends and the divorce. Then we're gonna jump into adult friends that you may have lost an adult. Also, Debbie says raised her second husband. Who else do you think he was married to? Brandon. Brandon, come on. Don't worry, Debbie. I scolded him for correcting you. It's just wrong. All right. I just want to.
She said no, she wasn't married to Jim.
Yeah, I
She
thought
didn't marry
she
Jim.
was. Thought she
Didn't.
was.
She.
I wasn't
didn't-
alive at the time.
You know,
to be
you never
fair.
pay attention, Brandon. You never listen anymore. I swear.
She's used to it. The second marriage or first marriage.
She is. All right. So, Nikki, what about your friends when your parents were divorced?
So, we were really young, same as Millie. I was in first grade, so we did move. We lived in Oxford at the time and moved to Utica. So the transition, I don't recall it really being too bad because I was also one of 4 children. So my sisters were my friends. So it didn't really affect us in that sense. But we were constantly bouncing from here, there, everywhere. I've had friends in so many cities across Michigan. It's been crazy. Into adulthood, the divorces like that I experienced myself, there was definitely, like, I gained some friends who were not my friends to start the relationship. They were his, and that's how I met them. But given the circumstances, they dropped him and stuck with me because they liked me better.
Now, okay, so the next step in this is our adult friends and people we know who've gotten divorced. I don't know, Brandon, you're young, but divorces happen very young. Do you have any friends that have gotten divorced?
I have friends that are married that I'm worried that it's not that far in the future. But there's a kid involved, so it's weird.
If you're worried, you obviously are like finding out little details and stuff. Are you in the middle kind of any of this?
Not really. I'm so close with the husband in the situation. And I mean, I'm talking. I thought it was a bad idea they were together like 6 years before they tied the knot. So
Well, we're on a public show right now, so just give us their names and everything. Let them know right now.
they know. At their wedding, I placed an under/over bet of 1 year and 2 weeks.
Ouch!
No,
I didn't
you
tell
did not.
everybody, but yeah, I lost that bet.
You deserve to lose the bet.
I knew right when
Jan-
they were pregnant. I was like, I'm gonna lose my bet.
Damn
Jan
it.
said her first husband was an ass, and so is this one primary example of not learning from mistakes. Jan, but then again, it can change. I know your husband's going through other things right now. Was he an ass before that, or is it just kind of he's changed with everything else going on?
Right.
And here's where we go to the adult friends. Divorcees want you to pick sides. Who has been the victim of being that middle wheel?
Yes.
Me. No. I feel like because only one of my friends has actually gotten divorced where I knew the husband and wife. Like I have other friends who've been divorced, but I became friends with them after or whatever.
Okay.
But my one friend, I'm still friends with him because he was my friend first, and I'm still a good acquaintance, I'd say, with his ex-wife. But I felt awkward about spending time with her. So
Was
because
she
he
the
was
wrong?
my friend first, I stayed more around him and our other friend circle.
Who,
we were
if
all
there
friends.
was one, who was the wrong in that situation?
It was just they should have never gotten married. They got
They
married
should have never
because
gotten married,
she
so that
got
was breakup.
pregnant. They got married
Because
because she got
sometimes-
pregnant.
Because I
And
wonder how it
they had
is to
issues
stick with a
together.
friend who does the wrong thing. Like if your friend is the one who say cheated on his wife, but
Nobody
he's been your
cheated.
friend
It was-
forever.
they
No,
just
I'm just saying in
pulled it
situations
back.
like that.
They were a disaster together. Just they never
But that
should
can
have gotten
definitely
married.
happen too. What about
And then for me and my divorce, I lost my best friend.
sorry, Bill. So sorry.
Not
for you.
because she thought I did anything wrong, but because my ex-husband, he was friends with her husband, and her husband forbid her from being friends with me,
Oh.
All right,
even
so
though
I got,
we had been friends first before she ever met her husband.
I got a buddy who wants to call into the show. How do we feel?
Somebody wants to come on.
I think he just wants to do the call.
Just
but,
audio.
yeah, I don't think he knows.
Yeah,
how
just
to
send
do
him
the,
that link I sent you.
streamline. Yeah, I'll give him that too.
Yeah, and then just tell him to use no camera. He can come on as audio only. That's fine. What about you, Nikki?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had some friendships who, in fact, I actually stopped talking to them both recently, not by my choosing, but I think they're just going through it. And when it got to that point where it was very awkward and I just knew, they're tailing the end, they would actively fight openly. I mean, I'm calling the cops on you, crazy bitch kind of stuff while we were there. And because I met her first, it was always, she's my friend, she's not your friend.
Right.
And she got pissed at me because I was, I'm the peacemaker. I'm trying to, because they have children together. So I always, coming from parents who were bitterly divorced, my focus was always like, do what's in the best interest of your children. Like, try to co-parent, correctly. Don't fuck your kids up for their entire life kind of thing. And she was like, nope, we're going to drop you like, a bad habit, because sometimes people just don't like the truth. They're not ready to process it.
It goes back when people get divorced, they become like junior high kids breaking
Yes.
up. They
Yes.
really do. You can't
Yeah.
be friends with me. You can't got to choose. You got to
Yeah.
play that side.
Yeah.
I always, and I still do this to this day, I always pick the one that doesn't make me choose. I don't care how long I've known you.
Yeah.
If you tell me I got to choose, you lose.
Yeah, I will not choose. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't ask anyone to choose. Just some people. Like I said, I lost my best friend because her husband made her choose.
Yep. Exactly. Same thing.
And the thing is, they're not even friends anymore because he didn't really. My ex-husband didn't even like them.
Jan responded with her first husband was the asked, but raised all 3 kids by herself. And then he threw a fit when the friend of the court took my side when it came to visitation. Jan, what state were you in during that time? And I'm curious if you were in the mother state or not. Just out of plain curiosity. But on top of that, she says, my friends and family were very supportive, and they all say this husband is an ass too, which, of course, it's always the guy's fault. A little bitter over here. Sheena and her sister call their dad a supermarket donor. Okay. All right.
Always
So
lots of sharing. And they were rabbits.
I've definitely heard the donor used quite a bit to describe the exes, especially when it comes to kids.
Of course you do, Bill.
Yeah. That's
Usually
fair.
choose women because she is now single. Bill, something you usually choose the woman.
Okay.
Let me go into my bag. Let me go into my Let me go into my bag of rebound rings.
No.
You get the gold one, honey. Half a carrot for you.
It's got a backboard and a hoop on it.
So, okay, I'm going to ask from the perspective of the parents right now, who is you when you got divorced. Matter of fact, I'm only really talking to Nikki at this moment around the panel. How did you explain this to your kids? And I am going to ask Millie and Brandon, how did your parents try to explain it to you what was going on at such a young age?
Well,
Starting
you had
with
to.
or Nikki.
Oh, sorry. Well,
No,
you have
sorry.
to keep in mind with my first divorce, at the point that we divorced, my children were not in the home. Okay? And by the time the divorce was finalized, I basically had no access to them, only he did. So I have no idea what he said to them.
Right,
Or,
but how did you talk to them?
I didn't. At that point, there was literally a 10-year period where I did not have any type of communication. Only him and his family did.
That's primarily what I'm asking about, because you ended up having the kids, and you fought a 12-year battle. So how did you get...
Oh, you're talking about with James. Yeah, we were not. So the kids were so little, they didn't really understand. I mean, my
But in a
youngest
12-year
was
battle,
1.
they had to at some point.
Well, yeah, at some point, they learned to see for themselves kind of what was happening. I didn't have to say anything to them.
Okay, so they pretty much figured it out.
Yeah, because he was an asshole. He was physically abusive. They were not, blind to the person that he had grown to be.
My mother had made it
sadly.
a complete point not to down my dad in any way, because she just let me pretty much decide over time. But she tried to, of course, as a kid, I had questions of, why doesn't dad love me, all this other
Yeah.
stuff. And she had her ways. I don't remember exactly sometimes what she said, but she had her ways of calming me down, explaining to it without downing
Yes.
my
Yes.
father at all, which my father now deserved to be downed in every way, based on
Sure.
what I've learned since then. And what about you, Millie or Brandon? How
My
did
parents didn't talk to me about it really at all. They didn't explain really anything. That's why I was like blamed myself. I thought I was the one that caused it. They didn't talk to me about it. I
did
don't
you?
know why, but
No, he's not Brandon.
they at least were good about not, for the most part, really bashing each other in front of me. But like they just didn't have a talk with me, and
Yeah.
I feel like they should have. But
So you said
at
you
least in
blamed
some way.
yourself. How did you get out of that line of thinking?
It wasn't until years later, and I was probably high school age or something, and I talked to my dad and we're having conversations, and then I started realizing, oh, it wasn't me. Between that and then later talked with my mom,
So
they
you
both
kind of
just
figured
had,
out, and then you did
yeah,
have the conversation with your mom.
yeah, they had had issues before. My dad used to be verbally abusive to my mother. He had some major issues with himself, and he never dealt with them, and it exploded, and my mother didn't do anything about it. You know what I mean? She didn't stand
That's
up to
yeah.
him or
Well,
anything,
that's
and
unfortunately a big problem we have sometimes. Nikki, I know you got to go for a second, so we'll see you back in just 1 minute.
and
So
I think because I think it was just they weren't good together. It was probably a good thing they got divorced because they were not happy. Unfortunately, my dad cheated on my mom, but I think they should have just divorced before that got to that point. But
I got you.
you
So,
know,
well, I mean, you did figure. I mean, it's nice that you figured it out, but it's a conversation that has to be had. I don't know how many years went between you blaming yourself and then finally learning the other way around. But it's something that anybody going through a divorce and dealing with parents sometimes have to dealing with children. As the parents have to understand that you have to kind of explain to your kid. Kids will feel that way and never bring it up.
hmm
And you have to let them know as best you can. They won't always believe it. But that's a long time sometimes for a kid to wait to figure it out on their own because their whole life they think that they're responsible for being an abnormal family.
yep.
Yeah, no, like
That's why I
my
think it's
mom
really
said,
important to talk to your kids about it, age
yeah,
appropriately.
like my mom said, she tried not to bash too much, but just kind of let me figure it out for myself, and that worked. So
All right,
And
so
that didn't work for me because I really like it screwed me up for a while as a
yeah,
kid. I would
uh,
have benefited, I think, from having them talk to me, at least tell me a little bit about
I
that.
don't know
It
how this
wasn't
is.
my fault that they had issues and they needed to be apart. If they had at least done that, I think I would have been okay. But I really thought like it was my fault and I had caused it.
Gotcha. Jan, by the way, I didn't know you meant sperm donor. I know you put supermarket donor, so I laughed a little when I read it.
it's even better. I was like, is he doing it behind there? Is that what he's doing?
I really tried hard not to bash Brandon's dad, let him decide what to think for himself, and that was smart. And I don't always mean about bashing their father, just giving them an explanation without bashing them. That's always possible, and I was curious
Yeah.
if anybody had dealt with that.
I'm curious, really quick, just from each of us who have gone through parents who were divorced. Did you guys ever find yourself at one point in your life like fantasizing the idea of your parents
No.
rekindling? No,
I never did.
no.
I knew they weren't good together.
Right.
I turned
See,
out
I
better
did.
than my siblings who had to deal with them
Yeah,
growing
what was
up
your
in that
what was it
atmosphere.
like?
So
What was it like for you, Nikki?
I just, because I think it was because there was no closure, there was no explanation, if you will.
Settle down.
So I remember,
Not you. Dogs.
to what?
I heard him. Yeah, I heard him.
I remember like having like these dreams or fantasies, if you will, that my parents just decided to love each other again. I want to say I was probably, I don't know, maybe 10,
My
thinking that it was
understanding.
still a possibility.
It's a common dream. I didn't have it, and apparently the other two on here didn't have it, but that's kind of unique for all three of us not to, because it's a common thing for especially young kids to wish their parents were back together and have that family unit.
I think I might have maybe the first couple years, but after I think I just knew
You
Yeah.
realized
They
what,
weren't
it was, and it just
we going to be good together, so it was better than
I
that they
was
were apart.
I was fortunate enough for most of the time. My grandmother lived with me, so kind of I had two parental units. My grandma was a hard ass like she was my father. Oh my God. That one would beat me with an inch of my life. Sweet grandmother, my ass. God, I love her. Bill wasn't married, but when he left his daughter's mom, I told her she'd realize it one day, and she did. What did you say when she realized it? Talking to my daughter. Jan says, when my oldest decided to come live with me, as opposed to her dad, she said she did it because she went to get cereal milk for breakfast one day, and the new wife said she couldn't have it. It was the baby's milk. They had got married 6 months after divorce. I'm trying to interpret it, but it sounds gross. So, like, if I'm interpreting in a way here,
It sounds like they were told that.
well, they couldn't have milk for her cereal because it was for the baby,
for
not
the
her.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't
I
say
thought,
milk after you just said sperm donor.
yeah, I was. Brandon.
Did I really? That's hilarious.
Brandon asked at one point his dad and his new wife, me, and my new husband and my other son, dad and wife could all live together.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
You
remember
thought Big
that.
Brother was entertaining.
That's part of the fantasy that kids endure a lot of times.
Yeah.
So is Zach available there,
Yeah.
Brandon?
Yeah, I'm going to give
Okay,
him
I don't
a
know
call.
how well this is going to work. He should have just clicked the link, but whatever. Let's
guess
do
it-
it your way.
Guess it didn't work.
Okay, Kara.
I used to podcast, so it works.
All right, so let's see. Oh, you're actually calling him now. All right, so this is a true call in here.
Yeah, this is exciting. It's like a radio show.
Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, and welcome to Ear Shoulder Voice. Is this Zach?
Oh, he's not able to hear you guys because
That was my point of actually having him on the other thing.
That's a good point. I guess I'll lead this part of the show. What's up, Zach?
How's it going, dude?
So you got a story is about divorce?
Yeah. It's actually something that's I feel the aftermath of divorce. I mean, my parents got divorced when I was in middle school, and like the aftermath, I think it's really catching up to my mom right now, and it's actually getting pretty serious right now, and I feel like the stem of it was the divorce. And just for seeing your podcast, on the subject, just thought it'd be a conversation piece. But, again, if you because it just seems like, I mean, the podcast is obviously about you four talking through.
No,
your
it's about everybody.
situations.
It's everybody.
So I don't want to ruin,
No,
or
it's about
intrude
everybody's
on it.
story.
Yeah. So
Tell him to click that
yeah,
link.
I just think it's an interesting story to share, and yeah.
Tell
it's
him to use the
it's
link. I wanna
yeah,
hear.
It's getting.
Yeah, he really wants you to hit that link so that we could all talk with you.
He can turn his
Well,
camera off.
Well, when that link you sent me, it just brings me to the SteamYard page. It doesn't bring
Don't
me
click the picture. Click the link above the
anywhere
picture.
else. It told me to fill out.
Oh, so don't click the picture, click the actual link above the picture.
Oh, is that the
Do I
difference?
got you
Yeah.
on Facebook? It could be that too.
No,
You
it's
have
not
me on
related to Facebook.
That's
Okay,
why I've
sorry
been.
about that. It should just be the link.
Yeah, there's a the picture takes his stream out. Like I
Wait,
put
through
in all the posts.
Facebook because I went
So
to
sorry-
the, I went
sorry
to
for the
link,
delay on this here.
that you sent me.
We're
text
trying new
message.
things.
We are. Well, tell him to click on the link. We'll
so
get
wait,
back
so
to it
should
in a
I
minute.
click the link that's on your Facebook?
No, I'll tell you
click-
what. I'll tell you what. We'll make this really easy. Anybody want to join? Is he watching it on Facebook?
Yeah, how-
I just
You-
put the
you
link
can
in the
mute me.
channel. If you're watching it on Facebook, you should see the link.
Yeah, how are you watching it? On Facebook, he just put it in the comment section on the Facebook thing, so click that link.
Yeah, you're doing good right now, Nikki.
Thanks,
you can
brother.
restart if you need to, or Millie. Okay.
No, that's Millie. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so anyway, we just had a little glitch there. Let's go back to our topic really quick. See if you can glitch the link. We'll
So
get him
when
on
you're
here.
watching
So that's what we want. We want to be able to do call-ins, but it works best if you use the link to call in. But just make sure he follows that link or manually types it. It doesn't matter. So aside from all this stuff, do you think that it was important to go through the first divorce?
My first divorce. Yeah, definitely. I grew as a woman. I grew confidence to learn that certain things were not acceptable in just life in general. I grew to learn that love was not supposed to hurt. And so it taught me a lot of things, and then I evolved to the person I am today.
Do you think that it played a big impact in the fact that your current marriage is working?
That and, you know, me and Greg got married. I was in my 30s. I was kind of already in a place in life where I knew kind of what I wanted. I understood that marriage is to have longevity in marriage, it takes work. It's a full-time job, and it's about making compromises. It's about being an understanding person, and it's about forgiveness. So, I it was just I had to make a conscious effort, and still even today, like to this very day, we're pushing 13 years, and I have to make a conscious effort to, to not use that divorce word. It's so easy to throw that word out there and say, oh, I
Hi,
don't like
Zach.
what you have to say.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Going good.
So yeah.
That's
Go ahead.
So
I'll get to you in
I'll
one
let Zach-
second.
No,
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah,
I want to go to Millie really quick and ask her
Oh.
the same question before I get to Zach, because he's going to bring up a whole
I
nother
missed
topic.
the question because I was out.
I know, because you were coming back in. Do you think that first divorce was necessary for your life and your future marriage?
Oh, for sure. I wouldn't have probably even met my husband if I hadn't.
Do you think the lessons you
And
learned were important?
yes, I definitely learned a lot. I learned to stand up for myself, first of all, and to communicate better.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I think I also learned more what kind of person did I really need to be with, too.
I understand that.
Because I did a lot of reflection
Mm-hmm.
going through, from the first one to, okay, what kind of person do I really need to be with if I'm going to be with someone?
People often say divorce can be a blessing or a curse, and that's the exact reason why it can be a blessing. Because it makes your perspective different. It makes you look for something better, and you get a much brighter future because of it. Zach, before you start, first of all, glad to have you here. And I feel a little bad because I think we've kind of misinterpreted what the show. The show is actually about the people outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
We share our stories with random people, and some of us are just guests on here. But we're driven by the chat and the people outside and people that want to be a panel. So it's not about us. We just have gone through a lot of things, and we'd like to be able to talk about it so people don't feel like they're alone. So what's on your mind, Zach?
Okay, can you hear me clearly? We
I
good?
can hear you.
Yep.
Okay,
Loud and clear.
awesome. Okay, so I guess not. Well, with you explaining that, I guess I won't necessarily get into how it affected me, or necessarily I guess it has at the same time. Just reading the subject and listening to you guys for a bit, it just made me want to at least talk about it. Because my family each member of my family, aka my siblings and my dad, this story revolves around my mom. They all have different perspectives on it, and I feel like I'm almost the odd man out. Because I feel like the rest of my other siblings and my dad have given up. And I'm the only one really trying to hold everything together because it's getting pretty dark. So, anyway, to make a long story short, my parents got a divorce when I was in 8th grade. For like 2 years straight, it was rough. Like when they were still together, it was rough. It was, my mom slept in the living room, didn't sleep, with my dad. They didn't say a word to each other for I'd say over a year. Just didn't even say a single word to each other. So it was rough and awkward, I guess I should say. And I guess I understood why the divorce had to happen. Which, it is what it is. They didn't try to they let me, my brother, my sister do whatever we wanted. They didn't allow us to not see, one another or anything like that. So, that was good. But now, because I guess what also brought this up was one of you guys saying that that your mom still lives in the house. I think it was you, Brandon, that says your mom still lives in the house.
No, that I had brought up, I guess, at some point when I was a kid that, what if we all just lived in the same house?
No, didn't you say your mom's lived in the same house since you were a kid?
Oh, her, yeah, just
Yeah.
the stuff
Yeah,
she
yeah,
built.
that's what
Oh,
I was
okay,
getting
yeah,
at.
yeah.
Yeah. So my mom does as well, and she lives. I don't even know how big the house is in all honesty, but big house. We're talking about like 350 to 400 grand, like dollar house. I mean, but my dad had a good job and was able to support and all that, but she just works, as a nurse assistant, making like 15, 16 bucks an hour, and and she refuses to leave it for some reason. She's now she's living there, and she kind of support herself, even when we do the math, and she just doesn't want to leave for some reason, and because she's even given flashes of her being depressed, and she's also, but the thing that's killing me is that she's not accepting help. And it's scary because I just don't know what to do. And my siblings and my dad have all pretty much given up, just like
Zach, how old are you right now?
I'm 26.
You're 26, and this was 8th grade. You said they got divorced. It was 2 years going
Yes.
on. They still live together. Your
Yes.
dad has, I'm assuming, moved out.
Yes. Yeah. They moved out. He moved out immediately. He lived in an apartment, now lives in a condo. And she still lives in that place by herself. And I guess I must add too. So she has 3 dogs. Had 3 dogs. One actually just passed away a couple of weeks ago. But the house, so she works a full-time job and doesn't take care of the dogs, and the house is destroyed and also full of shit.
Okay. So why do you think it's like, do you think the house is the reason that she is depressed and stuff? Do you think it's because she's living in the house, or could it be, does she have anybody else? Has she met anybody else since then?
No, it's like, and that's another weird part too, is that, I mean, so my dad wanted to work it out, my mom didn't. And I made it clear to my mom, like, as the divorce happened, like, if you start seeing anybody, like, I'm gonna make his life a living hell. That's the way it was gonna be, because she didn't want to try to work it out with my dad. But my dad ended up going on a couple dates. I don't know, I probably say about 4 or 5 years later after the divorce, which, I was older at that point, pretty much getting out of high school, so I really didn't care anymore at that point. But my mom refused to, or did, I shouldn't say refused, but just didn't end up going on any more dates. But I guess ever since like late high school, they were continuously dating. I'll say that, on and off, continuously. And it was just, it was definitely weird when it first happened. I mean, like, kind of how the cycle went was they would date for, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks straight, and then they get in a fight over some BS, and then just not talk for about a month, and then they end up talking again. But I guess the other thing I want to add too, I feel like a reason she kept coming back is because, especially just, I told you about her living situation, at least, not being able to support her house that she's living in. It almost, she was, reeling my dad in, just, in case there came a time like where the government came knocking on the door and foreclosing the house.
So this house is owed money. It's not being paid or anything right now.
It's I mean, because there was, I want to say it was about a year and a half ago, she actually came to my dad because she was 3 months behind on her mortgage.
Okay. Nikki, you were going to say something?
No, I'm just listening in, and kind of, from a mother's perspective, hearing from Zach's point of view, my mind is kind of processing what he's saying and turning
Sorry
in
if I'm talking fast and going all over the place.
No,
you're fine, Zach.
Okay.
No, I'm just kind of processing what you were saying, Zach, and from a mother's point of view, thinking, is your mom depressed because she's lonely, because she doesn't want to disappoint you and, have you think a certain way? And don't take this, I'm not by any means blaming you for anything your mother is going through. I'm just thinking from a mom's a mom's perspective, maybe you need to sit down and talk with your mom and
We
try to
tried.
help her. And she's just closed off to it?
She we've had now, like, me and just my two other siblings had three interventions with her, of just us three and her, just trying to make everything crystal clear to her. And but then, like, it stays calm, and then there's always something said, usually by my other two, because they're fed up, and I'm the one trying to be calm and, like, talk to her, because, like, they're at the point of just being pissed off and fed up, and I'm just trying to sit there and keep her calm and, like, try to, I don't know, try to show that we're in this with her, instead of, like, coming. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, in every family, there's always, usually, especially when it comes to siblings, there's one person who ends up being the backbone. And Zach, that sounds like that's you in this situation. That has to try to keep everything together. But I'm curious, what do you think will be gained by moving her out of the house? I mean, will she be moving in with somebody, or will she still be alone?
Well, that's the thing, is that, I mean, there's no. I mean, I just told you guys, since my parents got divorced, they're on and off relationship. And, like, what really, I guess, the backbone of that was that they didn't live together. There is no way in hell that they could actually move in together. But, I guess
is that your perspective? Or is that theirs? I mean, is that something your mom is aware of?
I would say my mom, for sure. My dad, my dad is very supportive. Now he's definitely reached his breaking point. Like, he's blocked my mom's number and all that, which he didn't even do when they got divorced. He didn't even block her number.
Does your mom? I'm sorry, Zach. Does your mom suffer from any type of mental health issues?
No, and I've recommended for her, and she said she was going to talk to somebody. It was just weird, because at the time when she said she was going to go see somebody, I don't know, a couple of weeks after that, she, like, had a whole different persona, I guess. And I actually thought she was going to, and I tried, like, slightly hinting at it, because, as I mentioned earlier, there could be something that just triggers her immediately. So I'm like, just trying to tiptoe it. And it's like, oh, did you end up going to see anybody? And she says, I don't really want to talk about it. That's all she said. And I'm like, okay, all right, we don't got to talk about it. That's it.
So, Zach, often parents have a really hard time dealing with a child that wants to take care of them, or wants to tell them what to do, or wants to move them out and give them into a new situation. The thing that you are, like I said, the backbone of the siblings, because your siblings have given up, and I've seen a lot of cases like that, including myself for a period. My brother eventually changed over time, but early on, it was really hard to get him involved in some of the things that need to be involved with family. Something you have to realize by being the backbone, you have to also realize that you're not going to sometimes be able to change someone's mindset as easily as you want to. But you have to be there when they make the mistakes. If you feel it's a mistake and not going to work, the best thing you can do, sometimes if you can't change it, you have to kind of let it play out and be there when things go downhill. Because if you keep trying to push and change and get somebody, you're going to create a resentment in that relationship. To where you're going to push them away. And that's what we wouldn't want you to do. Obviously, keep talking to her. Obviously, keep trying, to tell her, but try to show her some of the benefits of what's out there if you can.
It's hard, too, because, like, it seems like she's so tied to this house that's actually, like, just making everything that much more difficult. And I don't know how to separate her from
how
the
long have you
house
had
just
this
to
house?
make things easier.
Has it been your whole life?
So I moved in there, I think, when I was like 8, 9, 10, around there. So that was, so I've been there forever. But there's also another part of the story I didn't even really get to. And I guess this is just the extra layer of fear, and why it's getting really hard right now. Like, there's not much time left, is that my grandma, her mom passed away last April, and she has not only her house in my mom's name now or in her will, but also my great great aunt's house that my grandma was renting to someone who actually still currently lives there. And so she hasn't even really started the process of putting those houses in her name in order to sell it. I mean, but the
Sounds to
first
me
step,
like she's depressed, and that might be part of why she's not
I
doing
think
the things
depression
that
is
she normally should.
definitely setting in. One of the things too that goes along with the
But
depression that causes it, especially when you're feeling like that, if you grew up in that house and she's been in that house that whole time, and then your grandma's house that she's dealing with too, or the one that's renting with people, when you give up, it's going to sound silly, but there's no difference in giving up a photograph or a
Yes,
house
it's about the memory
as
she's
far
holding
as a
on to.
memory.
Yeah.
And it can be so hard to let go, because when you do let go of that, you're saying goodbye
Well, not
for
only
real,
that,
and you're leaving it.
she's also, it sounds like she's in a grieving process as well. Like, she's probably in a way, by you saying she's tried a few times with your dad and your dad has been very, supportive of her, she may have some regrets. She may be seeing some of her own faults and self-reflection through the grief and the process of being alone that is putting her into this deeper state. All you can do is just keep reminding her that you're there and your siblings are there. And
I think what she's looking for, partially to what you're saying, Nikki, is I think she's looking for things to be there, whether it be the people, whether it be the material goods such as the house or anything like that, because it's really hard to let go. Unfortunately, when you have these things and you're living alone in a house, one of the biggest things and most common things to set in, as Millie said, is depression.
yeah.
Right.
It's really hard to get over it. And the only thing that can really help depression, I mean, aside from medical things and meds, we don't go through a lot of that on here at all, is having somebody there that they can always reach out to.
Yes.
And you can't always change their mind. We've talked, I don't know how often you watch this show, but we've talked a lot about some very difficult and tough subjects on here. And one of the things that's most common with people that talk to was there was somebody to reach out to, and there was somebody to keep them on balance. And they can't change us in our thinking. They can't make us suddenly go, okay, that's exactly what I got to do. Everything from, we dealt with hoarders before, we've dealt to abuse. And you can't change it, but you rely on that person to be there. And eventually, hopefully, what happens is that person becomes a stronger light in your life. And the other things, they become a little more willing to let go. It hasn't, even though it seems like a long time, it hasn't actually been that long, especially if they're on and off right now. Because there's still a glimmer and probably a memory of the past that constantly clicks in her head that she wants back. And if she gives up that house, she's given up everything. She's given up that little glimmer of hope in her head as well.
See, and I think that's the
But
mindset she might be in, is like that house is, symbolizes everything that was, and she's afraid to make the next move, which would be to get yourself into a situation where you can support yourself and then move forward and then maybe see what happens there. But where she's at now, tied to this house and the situation, she's afraid to make that move to try and, move forward and make change.
No, I hear you guys. But I mean, here's when I hinted at it's crunch time. It's when it came to those, the other two houses, not her own. I think me and my whole family agreed. She just doesn't want to move out of that place, which, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's something
I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, I guess you guys, gave more insight to why she doesn't want to leave that house.
We're not professionals at all. Don't worry.
No, yeah.
Oh, for sure. No, but it's a different perspective, and something that because I pretty much only kept this whole story between my family, pretty much. So this is actually one of the first times I actually got it out outside of maybe a close handful of friends. But it's okay, because I know you guys also mentioned having someone that she could reach out to, and I've continuously tried to stay true to that.
Don't stop.
Then now, when it comes to these two houses, so this happened not this past Saturday, the Saturday before, was we had a couple people come over to my grandma's house to appraise it for an estate sale. And my grandma was a hoarder, like to the highest degree, a huge hoarder. So the house is filled with so much stuff.
I think that's a requirement of being a grandma, is being a hoarder, honestly.
So many knickknacks.
You're probably right, in all honesty. So my mom, so that day, for the first time, my mom laid out to me and my other two siblings that if she doesn't pay the taxes on both those houses, they're going to get foreclosed.
Ah. She's probably feeling very overwhelmed.
Oh, for sure. And she told us it's going to be in March, like the beginning of March is when they're going to have to get foreclosed. And we're like, okay. And just as, this whole story entailed is that she doesn't have a lot of funds, a lot of money right now, especially because she can barely support herself living in that house. So it's like, okay, like now it's crunch time. We got to pay off these taxes. Oh, that's the thing. She says you have to pay off the taxes in order to even start the process of being able to sell the houses. Like that's the start of the process.
I think though, and I
you
could
can
be
sell
wrong.
it and pay off taxes if you have any kind of equity in that house.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There could be some terms of conditions in the sale that the new buyer has to assume.
Out of curiosity, have you approached the idea of equity to refinance and pay that off?
Not through my grandma's house, but this is something like that. This is I want to say conspiracy theory, a theory that the reason why she doesn't even want to sell the house I grew up in was because the only reason she's been able to support herself thus far is because she has been taking equity out of that house right now. That's something that's been scaring us, because also because I want to say like it was 2 summers ago, because the house was so obviously the inside was, I told you guys, completely wrecked, but the outside, her weeds were getting so out of hand. Like there were trees growing out like over ground, and me and my brother, my dad, a couple other people I know spent a whole summer every weekend getting like the outside in shape, like at least pulling out those trees, killing all the weeds and all that. And my brother was in real estate, and my brother was willing to not charge her, for commission or just an extra fee for having him be her agent. And just trying to piece it all together. It's like, we're almost thinking that she didn't want to have my brother sell it because she didn't want us to find out that there's been all this equity taken out of the house.
Quite possibly.
And that's, another scary factor that's scaring us, because, again, it's about a $400,000 house. Like, even if she sold, I think it's about like $350,000. My brother said right now, if she even sold it as is, the inside completely wrecked, like it's still about $350,000 house.
I'm curious, have you guys had like an estate sale at your grandma's to where that stuff could be consolidated and that money could go towards the taxes?
Well, that was the that 2 Saturdays ago was the first time my mom even had anybody come in and look at it, and they seemed like they were independent. They were an independent company, and they're just like, we don't have the manpower, especially during the times we live in, because they said they lost a couple employees because of the pandemic. That they just don't have the manpower to get rid of all this shit. There's so many books. There's mounds of silverware, that she hoarded, and magazines, and a bunch of BS. And they're like, once you reduce a lot of this clutter, then we can come in and start doing an estate sale.
Well, is that something that you and your siblings can do to kind of lift some of the burden from her and just go in and do it for her?
It's funny because I know I mentioned that it's crunch time, and this is kind of like where pretty much, I don't want to say like I've reached the point of giving up, because I haven't by any means, but this is my siblings pretty much broke the point here. So that was the thing, was that me and my brother were planning, like, okay, we could have, like, my brother could have 3 of his friends come over. I could have 4 of my friends come over. We have my brother-in-law, maybe some of his friends. And we could clear all this out in a day. And you could, like, start this this estate sale process. But she she doesn't want to throw anything out. Like, I feel like my mom's becoming a low-key hoarder because it's like, oh, there's this
Okay.
pile of books that I could sell for $5. Well, hey, that's $5. Why
Okay,
am I
this
going to
is-
throw out $5? Because each
this
$5 counts. Or there's a vase that's worth possibly $15. Why would I throw that out? And it's like, we need to get this shit out now.
This is where
You
the
know?
memory and holding on to shit is taking place. Okay, this is the hardest thing that anybody's going to deal with, especially her going through this, because she doesn't want to get rid of everything. Everything in that house has value, whether it's a pencil, a magnet, a newspaper. Everything has value, either sentimental or monetarily. So that's not going to work. But what you have to do is, this is going to have to be your time to shine, Zach, because you are the strongest one. And what you have to go in and you have to start slowly getting things organized, getting things ready. Even if she doesn't know necessarily everything you're doing, you have to prep. If people are not going to go along with you and you're going to be this rock, your life's going to be hell for a little bit, because you're going to be working your ass off taking care of it, but it's going to be for the better future. And you have to prepare financially. Call people, call some realtor lawyers, and all that stuff, and find out your options, find out what there is. And people will jump in. I know it's crunch time when it comes to foreclosures and stuff. People will come to you left and right about buying that house right out from under you, avoiding the foreclosure, and do that. There's going to be so many options that are going to come towards you. Don't jump on every one of them, because a lot are scams. But research.
We had two neighbors come up to us the first day we went there. We had two neighbors come up already offering, hey, whenever you're ready to sell the house, call us. You know, so there's people, and it's in Dearborn. So Dearborn's a hopping spot right now.
Yeah,
it's my
it sure
grandma's
is.
house. You know, so it's like, you can easily get rid of this house, but we need to get this shit out of here. And then the other thing I want to add is that she refuses to give me a key to the place, so I can't even get into the place.
Because she's probably
No.
afraid you're going to remove her memories she doesn't want to lose.
That's what
Maybe-
I'm saying. So I'm handcuffed here.
Well,
You know,
maybe
it's
you
like,
can
I don't
approach
know.
it. Maybe there's a different approach to this. Maybe you can, instead of like overwhelming her with, okay, we got to get rid of all this shit, give her
Don't
the
ever
option.
use the term get rid or throw away.
No, you
during
got to
this.
say to her, okay, so Mom, of this pile, what means the most to you? Are you keep, however many things, and then you have to agree to let the rest go. Like
A lot of it isn't even memories. You know, yeah, that's one thing if it's memories, but it's unopened mixers from the 60s.
I still have
that
some
was-
of those
that
in my
was great.
closet.
the
Okay,
thing with
But it's
the
like,
thing
I
with
get $10 out of this.
but it
What
is
the
a
thing-
memory.
What do you have?
The thing with hoarding,
1,300
though-
porcelain dolphins.
Yeah, but you guys are kind of missing the whole point. The thing with hoarding is it's mostly it's mostly with people who have suffered great losses. So your mom, went through the separation with her husband and maybe semi-alienated in a sense from her own children. Her mother, is gone. So she's suffered all these losses. So she's like building this wall of things around her to protect herself from further losing things. It's not about the item itself. It's about
it's not.
protecting yourself.
All of it.
It's all psychological. And there's another thing that people often forget when they're dealing with hoarders and stuff, and you may see a mixer in a box. She may see that she was with her husband buying that mixer in a store at one time with a kid by her side yanking her shirt.
Right.
There's a lot of different reasons people hang on to things, and to them, it's not about the value of the product. It's about recouping something for the memory, exchanging it, not just discarding it. And that's where your mom, I think, is running into the most issues right now. Because it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's a pencil, because a pencil can have meaning and value to somebody, because you may not know the situation they remember, but I do. My mom, my grandma, my dad, all hoarders in a sense. They collected everything. They wouldn't throw anything away. One of the hardest things I had to do was go through the house and get rid of stuff. I came to a point that I got somebody else to come in my house, and I left. And I said, if you don't, just throw it away, I don't care, because if I don't know it was thrown away, I won't know I'm missing it.
Right.
But if I know somebody's going to throw stuff out, then I got that same feeling that they did. So the memory and the value is not necessarily something of, oh, this was a grand gift or this is worth so much money. it could be as simple of, this is the first place I stopped when I bought my new car. And it's the first thing I bought. First thing I got when I got my job. You know, or it's just a memory of who was with them when they got it.
Okay, so just I guess I'll just wrap it up with this. It's like, so then what do I do? Because again, these houses are going to get closed very early in March. So it's
You have
like,
to find a way to get
what the
that
hell do I
key.
do?
You got to find a way to get that key. But the best thing I would say is what Nikki was saying was true. You kind of got to reword it. You got to go in with something that is not getting rid of everything. Whether it's, hey, I just got to get in there, I got to, clean up, or I got to fix something, or I've got to do a door. And during that period, when you got that key, get things organized. People in that state will wait. They don't care about crunch time. They care when it happens, I'll deal with it then. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing they care about.
That's exactly my mom.
Yeah. So what you have to be able to do is, when it happens and she's ready to deal with it, you've already dealt with most of it.
Yeah.
It becomes
exactly.
much easier, much simpler on her. And I'm going to tell you right now, Zach, and it's really hard, but it's going to be hell for you to get through this. But don't wait to get a plan together. Don't wait till these people do, because people will cancel. People will not make it. Just, you got time. Go and start. But try to find some kind of reason you need to get in there other than cleaning up. And then, even if you have to, make a copy of that damn key. I hope she's not watching this show. And I was like...
Could you say?
I refuse to friend her on Facebook, so I think.
Okay.
Could you say, "Hey, Mom, I wanna take you out for lunch," and kind of bring her in that way, kind of, get her into a better state of mind while you're on your lunch date.
Yeah, take her to Applebee's and then send Ponky in Mission Impossible style.
Give her a few shots of tequila, and I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
I have done that, and it's like, I finally get her to like the starting point, which I remember the last time that happened was just getting the numbers of the amount of taxes she owes on both those houses. Okay, give us those numbers, however you have to do to figure that out. At least start there. It's like, oh, okay, yes, like, let's do this. Like, okay, that's a starting point, so then we can at least pay those taxes. We can contribute as a whole family to at least pay off these taxes, so where the government doesn't have to get involved.
You might have to take those baby steps.
Everything.
Yeah.
And
might
I
have
was
to
like, okay,
take
at least
those.
that's a starting point. And, then I followed up with her the next day or so, and she said that she couldn't reach the person that she wanted to, or something along those lines. She couldn't reach
They're
the
going to try
person
once
to
and
give her
give
those
up.
numbers.
They're going to
What
try
I would
once and give
do-
up.
I
You have to
would-
stay on top.
I would not let her say, "Oh yeah, I'll take care of that. I'll do that." I would you got to basically hold her hand through it. Don't walk away and just think she is gonna do it. Stick by her side. Stick by her side through the process of, just kind of, you got to kind of nudge her, but she's also in a very delicate state. So she's going to need you, especially if you're the rock that is kind of holding up the foundation. She's going to need you to fall back on.
We're running out of time. I have one final question for you, Zach, though. And when you've taken your mom out and you've done these things for her, have you done it yet and recently? I know it's crunch time. I know it's heavy on your mind. Have you done it and not really mentioned anything about it for a little bit?
Yeah.
Tried to avoid the topic to try to build a little something else up first and then bring it up? Because that could be more powerful than you think.
Well, no, and I learned that the hard way. There was one time I was house sitting my sister's place and just invited her over. It's like, yeah, I'll make dinner and let's just, hang out, and then we got on the subject of the house and then she just stormed out, within 10 minutes.
Avoid the subject for a bit.
Yeah,
Because
and that's
Not
where
just minutes.
Yeah, what's happening is, first of all, when that happens and you get to the subject, first of all, she feels it's going to lead right back there, and she feels bombarded with this topic. And what she's probably feeling is that you don't understand how much it's probably even weighing on her mind, and she wants to get away from it. Because, believe it or not, even if she's not showing it, it's probably weighing very heavily on her mind.
Yes.
And when she's bombarded by everybody with it, even people she doesn't know, we lost Millie, even with people, when she's bombarded from every side with it from different people, it's overwhelming. And when the subject comes up, it causes people to sometimes storm out or something to happen like that.
Yep, and like I said, I learned that. So then after that time, I did another time of just me making dinner and us just hanging out, and she appreciated it a lot. But it's.
But at the
there's-
same time,
there's
you're
so-
like, all right, but we gotta get this thing. Like,
Yeah,
moving, so
there's
you're
so
in a
much-
crunch
Use the time to be
situation.
creative, Zach. Use the time to get information. Use the time to talk about things that people could have and stuff without mentioning you could have if you give this up, but just things that you could have and use the future and try to be creative with that time together. But more than anything, get that damn key.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
okay, for sure.
worst comes to
It's
worst, February 27th, we'll tranquilize her and just take care of it.
All right. Sounds
We
good,
come
Foxy,
through.
Yeah.
But
Well,
Zach,
then also to end it, to conclude it, like, so this, this was the outcome of a divorce. It was that this was it.
well,
You know.
I'm glad you
I know that was the
you
subject.
called in because this is
Thank you for
important.
having me.
This is people who actually get to see what it's like and what's happening to people during the divorce that they don't often understand, and that it can extend for a long time after that divorce occurs. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Zach, for being here.
No, really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Love you, brother.
Absolutely. Zach's really cool. That was nice.
Yeah, he's a good
I like
kid.
Zach. I hope
like
it all
him.
works out. Unfortunately, families split up. Unfortunately, people fall out of love. We talked about it at the beginning. We talked about it throughout the show. We talked about different ways it can happen, whether they cheat or whatever. But life isn't over at a divorce. Life isn't over after most of the situations that happen on every show we do. Life goes on and it continues. But it's a stepping stone. You can't reach the top of the ladder without climbing a few steps. And sometimes you just got to keep pushing forward. But when you get to the top and you find what you really want, you'll look back on the other things, especially the marriage you had before, and realize what was wrong and how this is so right. You'll appreciate it so much more. When it comes to kids and divorce, make sure they understand what's going on. Don't leave them on their own to try to figure it out. You don't have to tell them the details of why you're divorced. Don't tell that, daddy fucked his secretary. Nobody wants to hear that. But you can, however, say, sometimes it's just easier, to live apart. You can explain that it's not because they don't love the child. And no matter how much people, movies and everything bring this up, that it's the child's fault. They feel it's their fault and they don't love them. That's fact. They do feel that way. You have to cement it in their brain that it's not their fault, or they'll grow up like Millie did for a long time, thinking that she was the reason she didn't have a quote-unquote normal family. But being a single parent is a normal family too. Being a family of separated people who have gotten remarried is a normal family too. Normality in this country is fucked up.
Yeah, 70% majority normality.
Finding somebody like Debbie's parents or Allison's parents that have been married for so long is a rarity nowadays. But our lives are still good. We can still get over it. You have no idea what you're missing if you've not experienced it. But believe me, when you get through and you understand what happened, first figure out you don't want to deal with that shit again. But then figure out why you dealt with it to begin with. What was your part in that? And I guarantee you by the end, you're going to end up with a much happier life than you started with. And much happier than you ever had when you were married that first, second, third, fourth time. At that time, probably give up. Don't be a Bill.
Yeah. Bill.
We don't want that. But anyway, today's topic was, of course, breaking apart the divorce show. How does the family split affect your life? And it affects everybody. It affects your friends, everybody. So talk to them. Just a quick note on the friends again. Don't make somebody fucking choose.
Yeah,
You're a
you.
big asshole if you do that.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to use my brother for an example really quickly on that. My brother, when he got divorced with Lynn's, his ex-wife, I'm sorry I just said the name, but when he got divorced with his ex-wife, said, we want everybody to be friends and remain cool and be together and stuff. Then started getting mad at family for talking to them.
Oh.
Because you can't. So make sure you accept the outcomes. Make sure you don't make people have to choose between you, because why would you punish the people who are still by your side?
Yes.
More than anything. Our next topic is on Sunday, and this is an actual deep topic we're doing Sunday because Wednesday will be our Super Bowl special, and then we're not going to have one the following Sunday because that will be Super Bowl. But as I Want to Leave This World is the reality of suicide, and we're going to talk about exactly that, suicide, but it's a little different than just committing suicide or wanting to. It's the reality of it. It's understanding that it's not something just talked about. It's not something that happens to your friend or friends. It's something that can happen to you, your family, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, cousins, best friends, anybody. boss, neighbor, it doesn't matter. It affects everybody. It's about realizing how real that situation is and what you can do and how you can be a part of a solution when sometimes there are people that can still be saved. So please be there for that one. And also, taking away from that, get the smiley face here. Don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe to Ear Shoulder Voice on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. And you can follow our live shows, live chat during the show. We love it because that's what drives our show. And visit us at www.earshouldervoice.com. And you can get a schedule of all our shows, vote for your favorite topics, and also ask to be a panelist on one of our live shows as well. You can also call in, as we had, and I want to send a special thank you out there to Zach for doing so. That was kind of a monumental moment here for the show, and that was awesome. So that was great. We loved having you. It comes off as we're here to talk about ourselves a lot of times because we're the main ones on the show. But this was desired or inspired by the idea of having other people be able to come to us as well and talk amongst a group of friends about you too. That's why I want to take the time as well to especially thank our chat panel, because everybody on the chat, you really played a major part in driving this show tonight as well. I appreciate all your words. You are fantastic. Zach, thank you. Thank you to Bill, because that's just what I'm supposed to say. Nikki, my God, girl, I tell you, every time I talk to you, there's so much stuff on there. You have been to hell and back, and you are still here smiling.
Pull away the layers, Keith. It's like I'm like
You're an onion.
a sweet onion. I'm a sweet onion, not the
I like
yucky
the other
kind.
ones. I like the yucky kind.
I like red onion. I mean, I like all onions, but not
There's
everybody
different
does.
kinds of onions.
Red and sweet and
Brandon's like, there's gross
cooking
ones.
onions.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's green and there's white. There's so many.
Yeah, there are. Thank you for being here, Nikki. Thank you for sharing your
Thanks for
stories.
having me, Keith. You know, like, this show is just the... I can't say how proud I am to be a part of it, because I really, truly believe, you know, as people realize, like Zach realized tonight, that, like, the idea is to help other people, not just talk about ourselves. So.
Yeah, it's just to talk about people who have, dealt with it and have experience. And the biggest thing to take away from it is we've gone through this stuff. We're not here really to talk about our problems as much to explain that you're not alone, but we're still standing. So you
Right.
can be too.
Right.
That's one big one. Brandon, you've been missed. I know you've been a little
Yes.
scattered lately. We knew the minute that girl was moving in, we were going to be fucked to be on this show.
Yep.
But I'm glad you made it back.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun.
We love having you. I actually didn't know that you had gone through the 3 divorces there. Or I'm sorry,
Apparently it
2.
was 2.
Because Jim was not married to your mom. So
Well, she's still
See,
married to the one? So
She's
only
married
one
to number
divorce?
2, which I thought was
So
number
only
3.
one divorce.
But to
So
be
only
fair,
one
it is still a total of 3 divorces, with the 2 from my dad's been through. So I was
Too much
I was
math.
right but wrong.
His
Oh,
dad
okay.
had divorces.
I thought you said each was through 3
separately.
divorces. That's what I caught.
I
from
did, but I was
But
wrong.
okay, that's what we wanted to hear was you were wrong. No, we love having you, Brandon. Thank you again for being here. We love your little bits of humor and all that too. That's always great. You've definitely got a career as a comedian ahead of you for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Millie, sweet Millie, my angel. You're always so sweet and kind. Again, you are the perfect example, as Nikki said, of that onion. There's so many layers on there, and all we get, we look at you, we meet you, and we see this bursting, wonderful person. And there's so many things you often miss that have been going on through their lives. So I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your words.
Oh, thank you. I think a lot of people that way, like, you think they're like one thing, but most people have lots of different things that happen to them in their lives, and life is complex.
It's weird how people can hide. I picked up this hooker once, thought it was a female, lifted up that dress. Amazing.
Stop it. Stop it.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us here at Ear Shoulder Voice, and we will see you all again, hopefully on Sunday, and many, many, many more shows to come. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Loved the show.
Loved it.
I absolutely
too.
did.
So,
That was much more than I thought it was going to be. That was awesome. Zach was amazing. Why do you got burritos? Did you bring enough for everybody?
Share. Actually, I can't have burritos, so don't share with me.
Aren't there some kind of tortillas? You know, those like carb-free, flour-free,
No.
flavor-free shit?
No.
There's
No,
ones
there's
that
not.
they make with like I thought they make with like cheese or whatever.
Well, that's the thing. My diet is no cheese,
Oh, you
No.
can't have cheese either. Okay.
no dairy, virtually very, very, very low carb. Mine's about high protein because I'm building muscle. I'm trying to tone and build muscle and get rid of the fat.
Okay.
So I have
That's
to
why
be
we
a
had to
little
cut
more.
this
And
short.
you're more
Brandon,
than just
huh?
low carb. You're also like the dairy free and all too. Yeah, that's harder.
Not by choice. I blame my trainer if she's watching. It's all your fault, Jamie. But I
I hope I
appreciate
ate a
it.
Cadbury egg.
That's better than burritos.
Put in burritos. Ooh, that would be good. A
Trade?
dessert
Actually, tried a
burrito.
peanut butter one though.
Oh my
I never
god.
had a Reese's egg.
What the balls?
They're my favorite. They're so good.
Are they? I've
Reese's
never
eggs
had
are
one. I
really
saw it at the
good.
store. I'm like,
They're
I
the
know
best.
he's fat, so they just thought, oh, he's got to have. Okay, I'll
I'm
try
gonna
this
They're
one.
hoard-
way better than a regular Reese's cup. in
Oh my
opinion.
god, the
We're gonna
Snicker ones
find
are
out
so
right
good
now.
too. I'm gonna
They make
hoard
Snickers
like
ones.
yes, and
Yes,
Twix.
they're really good.
I'm gonna
My
hoard
favorite
like as
are the
many.
Reese's eggs and the Snickers egg.
Yes, I'm gonna hoard
Thank
as
you,
many
Jan.
as I can. And
Really quickly, though, Jan, I'm sorry I didn't get to your last comments. We got caught up with Zach, which is actually what I love when that happens on this show. But sorry I missed your last few comments. And thank you very much, Jan, for sharing.
Yes, thank you.
yes, I'm gonna hoard as many Cadbury eggs as I can, so when my competition is over, I can just be like, brah brah brah, fatty. I'm eating everything.
I'm
gonna
just going
go
to
on
sit
an
back and
eating
enjoy
frenzy.
this shit.
Ashley's dad for Christmas got me 2 quarter-pound Reese's cups.
Oh my
Oh
god!
my God, I've
It
seen
was
those.
heaven.
We used to give those away around trivia.
I got
awesome.
Greg a
I've always wondered what it was like to
Snickers.
eat one, though.
Holy, it's so intense. 'Cause
job.
it's oh yeah. I got Greg a Snickers one, and I was like, oh, he'll have it for like a month.
3 days.
Man, one sitting. I was like,
One sitting,
diabetes much?
Yeah.
right?
He's as skinny as a freaking door.
Yeah, there's something about it. There's just this. I have that body type. I eat like
High
absolute
metabolism.
garbage, and it's just,
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
I said it before. Fuck you, Brandon.
I will say this though, since I've been working out, and because of the diet I'm on, when I get to the gym, I'm working on very minimal, well not minimal, but very low calorie intake. So by the time I'm done with my workout, I'm now finding myself in a deficit. Like I've worked off all those calories. So there are days, I'm not gonna lie, there are days, I don't know where it went, but there are days I still indulge because in my mind,
You
like,
have to.
yeah, well, in my mind, you say diet, and I'm like, skirt, I'm going the other way. So if I just allow myself just a little bit, it's
You're gonna make your girlfriend jealous the way you're eating that.
calming.
No, but you have to when it comes to diets. You've got to
Yeah.
have an indulge and have fun. 2 reasons. First of all, you don't feel as trapped.
Yes.
Oh my God, this egg was amazing. I don't like candy much, but Reese's is a weakness. Holy shit, that was good. I gotta have
Well,
one
yeah.
Cadbury
It's
egg
a
a year.
crazy
That's
good.
why I bought
Well,
one.
and I'm sure Millie can sympathize with the struggle because women generally, at least me, like that, that monthly visitor we have, that's really the only time I want freaking chocolate. And so right now
yeah.
I'm like, it's like angel, devil. But I'm kind of coming to terms with food. Like instead of saying I can't have it, it's just simply I don't want it right now.
I'll tell you, I'm a really big guy, obviously, but I had lost 100 pounds really fairly easily, and it was really just starting to take a comparison of what I could eat, what would satisfy me, and what would.
Yes.
And Taco Bell was like a big player on that because that's like all that's open when I get off work. But it started where I would go, and I would eat Taco Bell every damn night, and I lost a lot of weight doing it because I'd be like, I can get a bean burrito or I can get 3 steak soft tacos. 3 steak soft tacos is 450 calories, and that's gonna fill me up.
Yeah.
A bean burrito is 490 for one, and I'm going to want at least another one. So you start
Yeah.
like comparing them, and you're like, well, I'll get the 3 steaks. That'd be really good. And starting
Yeah.
to do that played a huge part in me losing all the weight I did. And
Yeah.
then, well, a lot of shit happened, and I put it back on. And then COVID happened. Actually, that's all. I actually maintained all but like 10 pounds for like 2 years. Then COVID came, and I'm
Yeah.
30 pounds ahead. but you
Me
have
too.
you have to give yourself that cheat day, because if you diet and you don't give yourself that cheat day, also when you get off that diet, all that weight's coming back
Yeah.
because you'll binge and your body will not know how to process that stuff anymore.
Well, I don't know though, because I found myself now that I'm, I'm about, I don't know, 5 weeks in or so, 5 or 6 weeks in. So, I remember back to like when I would pile everything onto my plate. I would have this big ass plate of food and I would scarf it all down. Now, like when I make a plate of food, the portions have decreased by mountains, and
That's
I
the
can't
other
even
thing.
finish that stuff.
That's the other thing with picking and choosing what you eat, as I said on that, because your body does adjust, and now you're eating less and don't realize it.
Yeah.
That you are.
Well, I'm
calorically, you're eating less, but
Yeah.
you're eating more. Calorically,
Yes.
it's just less.
Exactly.
And that's the